This is a clouds weather alert. Tracking Nicole.
Back with you on this Thursday morning. I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center tracking Tropical Storm Nicole here. Made landfall as a hurricane. If you missed it here earlier this morning, we were on for the better part of 4 hours or so in front of the wall, tracking that landfall there as a Cat 1 there, just barely into that status there at about 3 a.m. or so around Vero Beach. And had some nastier impacts there, but we're starting to see the threats actually increase here toward parts of Florida, parts of Georgia, especially here in our viewing area. We have a tornado watch now in play until 1 o'clock here in that yellow area. You can see that there, including parts of our first coast there, including parts of northeast Florida. We're talking about areas like Putnam County, Flagler County, Clay County, St. John's, over toward Duval, there, Nassau, Camden, and Glenn. So you got to be aware here of that tornadic potential today. Have multiple ways to get alerts because we could have some tornadic development with little or no advance notice. That threat to start to ramp up here as we're kind of talking about here as we get over the next couple of hours here through the morning. We should start seeing some tornado warnings more than likely come on the board. We haven't seen any yet. We thought we might see some before sunrise. We had one storm we were watching there as we were watching some of the action there off of the Flagler County coastline, but we didn't see a tornado warning have to be issued, thankfully. But we've got to be watching these storms. I'm talking about this banding feature really, as you can kind of look here, moving across, kind of trying to point that out there. Let me move this over just a little and zoom on in to make that a little bit easier here. As you can kind of see this action in towards St. Johns County. Now we're getting some of the stronger gusts that we've seen so far, but the conditions are going to worsen here. That's why we kind of had that little break here so we could gather some new information, check some different things behind the scenes. You can see here some of the heavier rain right now in St. Johns County, maybe some weak rotation even, so we'll just continue to monitor for that here this morning. We have a tropical storm warning for all of our counties, which is very rare, as we were alluding to here in the previous coverage stream that we had. I mean, going back to Irma, probably about the last time we'd have had anything like that here. Granted, we had hurricane warnings part of the area, so the maximum isn't as significant here in terms of those wind speeds, but we're getting gusts 30, 40, 50. We even had a gust here in our covered area at 72 miles an hour a little while ago, according to the Weather Service there in Flagler County. Now, keep in mind, I wonder about that gust because there's an issue with one of the stations down there reporting such, and the power outage numbers aren't really catching up to that type of speed. That's why we weren't aggressive about coming right back on there, anything like that. But oh, you heard that beep in the background. Weather Service there, meteorologist Andrew Kennedy with the National Weather Service in Jacksonville saying they're watching another cell now about 20 nautical miles east of Crescent Beach for weak rotation. The rain band will continue to slowly move northward, so the tornado threat will increase as the band makes its way toward the Jacksonville area between now, they're saying about 10 and 11 a.m. So a little bit later now, we're pushing that timeline with the real increase threatening into towards southeast Georgia between, if you do the time conversion there, 17Z. So on the new time, that'd be about noon there to about 1 o'clock. So that's what we're kind of watching for here. We got to watch because we were talking about it earlier on this morning in the coverage that we have these high parameters. Let me go ahead and switch this on over to the computer system right now. You can kind of see what we're talking about here. Supercell composite values over 10 in some of these areas. So as these parameters try to come across here, because our storm system's down here in central Florida, areas like Osceola County there in the center of circulation at this point. I don't really want to call it an eye now. Granted, there's a dry slot in there, but we have this storm system moving across central Florida. So this is going to kind of drag these more favorable parameters, a more favorable quadrant of the storm here. This potential is going to kind of drag on in. And let me go ahead and take the radar off so you kind of get a better perspective on that, a better perspective on what's going on. So, and the supercell composite here, I'm going to switch over to that so you can see this area right here. So this is what we're watching here, folks. We're really watching this here in the Weather Center this morning. You can see here, this is going to be pushing on in here as the storm is headed toward the west-northwest. So is this threat parameters. That's why we're concerned here and that's why there's a tornado watch in play for parts of our viewing circle: Camden, Glen, Nassau, Duval, Clay, St. John's, Putnam, and Flagler. So now in a hurricane like what we had with Ian down there, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference maybe between the tornado damage and the hurricane damage right near where it came ashore. We had some tornadic activity, but here is a much different situation. This would be where you have your strongest wind and your most wind damage by far here in this type of scenario. So that's what we really got to watch for, these areas of circulation, these areas of spin here with this. So we still haven't had any tornado warnings. I hope it stays that way. I know we got lucky darn Ian in our area without having any tornado warnings in our 62 counties, but that probably won't happen here, unfortunately. So we have to just be on guard for this threat here today. These different areas of rotation definitely showing up within the Doppler algorithms. So let's go ahead and say some of these right now before we start to talk more about that storm surge threat. I know you can see these areas of green or red trying to come together here. They're not really well defined over there. I know we've been tracking some different areas, but they haven't really materialized. See the gust here, 30s, 40s, some areas in the 50s though on them ETAR sites. And I know we're also watching the potential for some power outages here to get even more widespread. I know I had the update here on the screen from about 7:30. I'll see that, and then we'll see the new update and see how things have changed from that point. So let's go ahead and take that screen now full. You can see here we have a concentration of outages really in Brevard County. That's where the highest percentage of outages is. As about 7:30 in the state, we have almost 250,000 out. Let's see if we got to that unfortunate 250,000 benchmark now. They go ahead and refresh the screen. Actually dropped a little, which is some good news. A little bit of a drop, not by much, but I know I'm a little surprised by Flagler and St. John's. I almost wondered it's not quite taking everything into consideration, and it's not getting all the data is what I'm trying to say. So we have to watch there, because the winds we've seen in St. John's and Flagler, I think, would be knocking out a little more power than this. This does a good job here in general from PowerOutage.us. As I go ahead and see Brevard County, about 87,000 customers in the dark there. Indian River County, about 18,000 customers in the dark. Volusia County, about 30,000. Nothing like what we saw there back with Ian so far, but still noteworthy for sure up here in the dark. Flagler County, again, these numbers seem low. St. John's County, Duval County, that may be about right, 4,000 or so in the dark. I know things of the Jacksonville Fair there having to be pushed around because of the overall threat here, Veterans Day activities not taking place because of this threat here. That's going to be lingering to some extent in Ward Friday and the cleanup as well. But I don't know, University of Florida, Florida State University, both canceling classes for today as well. As you see here, toward Levy County, about 373 customers in the dark. I know most of the public schools are out too. We can't go county by county with that, but I know Bradford County there with no school today. And we're also now getting word here, we're getting a report into the chat. So let's go ahead and pop it back on camera now. Some important information. This coming in now out of Flagler County from Bob Pickering. That storm surge threat really starting to increase, and this is going to be a worse storm surge threat than what we saw there during Ian. So we really got to be prepared for that, and we got to emphasize that here. I know I don't have all the images maybe that you would see on another outlet, something like that along the coast, but we're getting that information in, and they're telling us here right now, the emergency management there in Flagler County, that the water is 12 inches over the canal wall, or about 3.5 feet above level that we're really tracking there towards Cheyenne Court and Palm Coast. That's according to what Skywarn spotter is saying. So that storm surge is really coming up. I know we have some issues there toward the Bridge of Lions as well, in towards St. John's County. So we really have to be cognizant of that. We're seeing the storm surge threat escalate on us again. A high tide coming up in that 9 o'clock hour towards St. Augustine. So we could really have problems there in that hour. We're going to be getting that information. And you got to remember to turn around, don't drown, though, if you're in St. Augustine, that area, because we have that wind that's really coming in here. I know we really want to emphasize this again, worse than Ian with that storm surge threat. It's almost a certainty here as we get toward parts of St. John's County. So let's go ahead. We'll say this right now. You can see the wind direction. We have all this wind energy pushing on in here. Let me take off our mesofill right now. You can see here all this wind really coming in, and when that coincides with high tide and some other factors, we could really be up there on our scale, and we're going to be watching all of that. In fact, let me see what we have in terms of some of our inundation dashboard information. Unfortunately, we don't have anything right there at St. Augustine. I really wish we did. It'd be really helpful, but we'll go ahead and take the Mayport one because we're starting to see that rise now at Mayport. So let's go ahead and pop up the coastal inundation dashboard now. We'll go ahead and share the screen with you. This is from NOAA, and you can see here we're getting toward the highest level we've had so far there toward this area. You can see right now about 2 feet over what we would like there. This is just going to keep on going up. It's hard to kind of click on the exact right spot. Try to leave that there as we go ahead and see the next high tide there really coming in play at about 9:36 this morning. So again, 9 o'clock, that 9 o'clock hour, that's one reason we want to make sure we kind of were resetting some things here in the Weather Center, because that high tide, folks, going to be worse than Ian, maybe in some areas here, like Irma, we'll see, but over 2 feet already here in this area. And again, another number says 0.65, but sometimes this stuff isn't quite 100% accurate here in terms of showing some of these different numbers. Is already up there into that moderate flood potential, Roy, or at least approaching that. It's hard to tell exactly, but right around that line. And that's just going to keep increasing here over the next hour, hour and a half or so in this area. St. Augustine here in that 9 o'clock hour, it looks like we're going to have that high tide. So we got to really be cognizant of that potential here as we're watching some of these different water levels go up and potentially inundate different areas here along the coast. Again, unbelievable, really, when you think about it, with so many threats over the last several years on our hands. Let's go ahead and check now some other information. Let's go ahead and move away from the dashboard for now. And again, you just see that water here with the wind direction coming on in. We have the lower pressures. I know where I'm at. We've now had a measurement here of 1,002.8 millibar that keeps dropping, and that's something to take note of, because right before I came on, it was challenging our lowest pressure of the year now, and we now have our lowest barometric pressure the entire year here in Bradford County, where I'm at, east of Stark, on my anemometer, 1,002.8 millibars on there. The lowest before was in that 1,003 range. As we were looking back in January, we had those tornadoes down there toward southwest Florida on a Sunday morning. We had a winter storm to the north of the lower pressure, and we were getting a taste of that here on the north central Florida region and in toward north central Florida. But now the lowest pressure the entire year here, I know, in Bradford County, and that's going to keep dropping as that lower pressure, we're under 1,000 millibars. That area keeps getting closer and closer. I know in Irma here we were dropping even lower than we're going to drop today. I mean, we're dropping there with that storm in the 980s, and I mean, really dropping on down there with that reading. But let's go ahead now and check some different things. I know I had a different barometer back then. This one much more accurate here, so I don't want to dive too much into that. I know our winds, highest one we had so far today here, 22 miles an hour, about 12:30 a.m. So let's go ahead and check, though. Right now I want to look at some of the camera images that we have, and I want to see the one that we have right outside east of Stark, because we had that rain coming on down right now in Bradford County as you're waking up here this morning. Let's go ahead and show you that. If you're just waking up here, no school today, that emergency shelter, Stark Elementary, but we were talking about it earlier, it would have been okay, maybe the conditions to go out there, but now it's pretty nasty. You probably, unless you're really seeing a problem in your neighborhood there in terms of maybe things starting to weaken there in terms of some issues there with your home, something like that. You really don't want to be going out in this type of weather. But let's go ahead and take a look outside. We have a camera. We can say if you're looking back west towards Stark, we're east of Stark, we're looking back toward Stark here. That's why we're saying looking west really on this super. So you can kind of see what's happening here right now. Again, I'm just giving you guys a view here. The wind's not as strong as they were here a little while ago with this, but we'll just continue to watch this image here. It's always kind of intriguing to see stuff like this here, to give you a little different perspective, because there's not really, I don't think, any cameras, except for WeatherStim, available on the internet here in Bradford County to give you a view. So I just want to make sure that you guys kind of get this view here as we're done with it here live in the timeline. So just going to go ahead and change something real quick on this camera, make sure it doesn't try to focus on us too much, because sometimes with this darker condition outside, it's going to try to play around with us here just a little bit. But again, I'm just trying to give you one view. It looks kind of calm right now. Wind 9 miles an hour, 11 miles an hour out of that northeast still, that northeasterly wind. It's been the story for days here, folks. I mean, I'll kind of go back and look here as we're looking at some different things. The highest wind today, actually, technically a little more northerly, 22 miles an hour at 12:30. Yesterday out of the northeast, 26 miles an hour. Out of the east or so on your Tuesday, 22 miles an hour. East on Monday, 21 miles an hour. Northeast on Sunday, 17. So we've been getting that wind is piling in for days here, especially even higher toward the coast. And that's a problematic situation. So again, just wanted to give you a different view here of the scenario right now. We'll go ahead and switch back on over to the radar view right now. Again, we'll be watching to see if we have some rotation. I know they were talking about weak rotation around St. Augustine. I got to watch for maybe a water spout at points to come on shore with little or no advanced warning. So you need to be ready to take shelter here in this type of situation. As we go ahead now and say the infrared satellite for a second. I have it on the measure view. So let me switch this. It kind of cuts things off. It gives you a little bit better view, but you actually see a little bit more of those colder cloud tops than we're seeing at points. And then here's our visible view, just trying to come into focus as the sun rises here. It rose there about 6:49, but it still takes a little while to get some of this to come on up here as we're watching different things. So again, there's your scope of things right now in the Doppler radar technology. Gonna step out of the way just for a second so you kind of just take this in for a moment here with Nicole. Again, it's a tropical storm now, as you kind of see exactly what we're dealing with here this morning. Just trying to say exactly how things are looking there on that Doppler radar technology. I'll go ahead and pop back on in now. Just wanted to kind of give you that scope, because you saw there some of this banding, and you can still see it here off toward east. We still got to get through a lot of this. Now, some of this may pass north of the viewing area as possible, for sure, depending on this ultimate track here as things kind of twist back around. I mean, that's definitely going to happen to some degree, but some of this is going to be moving more in here, and this is going to be potentially tornadic in nature. The parameter there, that's that northeastern quadrant. We saw it with Jean, we saw it with Francis. They were talking about in the chat session. I remember it. I was 10 years old, tornado warning after tornado warning. Luckily, we haven't had that yet, but we could be here. We could be here for hours with tornado warnings today. So we got to remain on guard for that potential because of how this is setting up here. We generally haven't seen something like this. I mean, it's the first hurricane to make a landfall on the east coast of Florida, even though, albeit a Cat 1, the other one I'm about to give was 2, and we've had storms like Matthew being more impactful in some regard, but it was 05 and Katrina, one was a Cat 1 coming into southeast Florida before. It was much more substantial there as we got toward areas there, as we look toward those regions around New Orleans, of course, the devastation. But let's go ahead and get into the graphics right now, the graphical presentation of things. You'll be able to see what's happening with Nicole here. So again, I keep showing this, but it's just, I mean, we're on November 10th now, folks. We're supposed to really be seeing a drop-off in the action, but we had a hurricane hit Florida here this morning, folks. It dropped down quickly, but as we were watching that, I mean, the first one since K85 to hit the state of Florida, that was in the Panhandle, the first one to hit the peninsula as a hurricane since 1935 in the month of November, which is just incredible to think about, really. As we go ahead and say now the storm names, Nicole there is the one highlighted, folks, and the hurricane season does run for another few weeks. We had this as a Cat 1 when it made landfall this morning on that Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale, with that barometric pressure definitely telling a story closer to more of a Cat 2, and we can't focus on the winds here because there's so many other impacts, and that's the strength of the low pressure here. Still 984 millibars, the 984 millibars is what we're seeing here, that latest 7 a.m. update from the Hurricane Center. You see the winds there, max is staying at 60. They're dropping off some. That movement west-northwest at 14 miles an hour, and just tropical storm warnings all over the board here this morning. All 62 of our counties. That we go down and stay here. I'll say this to you again. Been showing it to you here throughout the coverage, but I have it on the Jacksonville radar, so kind of disregard where there's not echoes on here down towards Central Florida, but it's raining down there in the Ward that area. As we go ahead and pop that on up now, you can see here our winds 40s, 50s down there, getting gusting spots higher. But look at a tropical storm warning scope. I mean, this is unbelievable, and they have a high wind warning, not an extreme wind warning. We haven't had anything like that with this, and we're not going to get that. But a high wind warning, that's something you more see out toward areas like Colorado or Wyoming. We're going to see that here and play because it'll be more of an extratropical system then. But the winds will be so strong toward areas there around Americas. I mean, out of our area. But Cochrane there, Eastman, Vidalia there, you kind of get the idea there for sure with the scope of this threat. Definitely intriguing to say the least. But right now, I mean, again, we're getting some pretty nasty banding features. St. Augustine here right now, and even a little rotation. I can see it under Doppler, not as much in velocity, but gotta watch, make sure nothing pops up on us around St. Augustine, because that would escalate and increase that wind threat down toward the surface here in St. Johns County this morning as we continue to watch that Doppler radar here. All that technology that we have, we're putting that in to use here this morning as we're watching Interstate 95 right now in St. Johns County. In fact, I think it'd be a good time to go ahead and pull up some of our camera shots that we have since it's daylight now. That's one thing we didn't have here earlier on. The daylight to illuminate things that made it tougher to really see what was going on. But with this heavy rain there in St. Johns County right now, right around Interstate 95, I think it'd be a good idea to kind of give you some of these views here just to see how it's impacting travel conditions here this morning. It is definitely causing things to be pretty treacherous in spots at least. Other spots people are getting by all right though. It just depends on your exact spot here. We'll go ahead and pop this camera up right now. It is I-95 at mile marker 313. You can see what we're dealing with there. It is conditions where people look like they're maybe taking a little slow, but overall the wind doesn't actually look all that wicked here at all. You don't see the trees blowing too much at this point, but it can change. We saw it earlier this morning. You don't get much wind, and all of a sudden you get a gust here, and that can obviously be problematic in nature. So again, we'll just continue to watch our different shots here. This again looking towards St. Johns County, right along the coast. The wind's a little more enhanced, so not necessarily seeing all of that. Let's get down here. Where else do we want to go with this? I'm looking here on our shots. I know we talked about it earlier, but it's just a one-man band, so I have to kind of decide on this as we're talking, which is a little bit different than what you see on a traditional broadcast, but it's just so I can kind of give you guys the best angles here. Right now, some of these shots are a little less impressive than others for sure. I mean, honestly, the wind didn't look all that impressive at points, but at other points it just picks up, and it's hard to kind of figure that out. It's unpredictable, as I know we're getting some reporting out of Flagler County and the Palm Coast area of some minor flooding because of this heavy rainfall. So just gotta be watching that as you're watching me here on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch this morning. All those platforms we're available on. So thanks so much for just tuning on in, sticking with me here as we're watching Tropical Storm Nicole. And again, the advisory that we got in just a little while ago here at 7 o'clock, I was talking about those 60-mile-an-hour max sustained winds. And barometric pressure still at 984 millibars, which is impressive. Now let's go ahead and look at that storm surge forecast. I want to emphasize this again because we're getting closer to high tide, and just again, it's going to be worse than Ian here in many of our areas. And that was already impactful. These different areas here that we always talk about here in these storms now, it seems like they're being impacted again. And we have the storm surge warning from Jupiter Inlet to Altamaha Sound, but St. Augustine, the flooding there. I know the Davis Shores area, that always floods in these type of situations, and it's going to be flooding here again. And the conditions are going to pick up with even more flooding here today. I know we've already had that devastating beach erosion in some spots. the dangerous rip currents, the very high syrup, but that life-threatening flooding, the worst here probably that we'll get. I mean, there's always a chance we get another high tide cycle here where things pick up, and we were mentioning it earlier. We got to watch toward the nature coast here and the Gulf Coast, talking about the Big Bend area there, where we have 3 to 5 feet of storm surge potential as well. That's from the Cloud River to Ocklackney River, but that's going to be later today as the center is passing on off. The wind's going to change and kind of maybe funnel that water on in there toward areas like Cedar Key. So not as bad as Hermine probably, just kind of looking at some things, but still, that was back in 2016, but still could be impactful there and toward that area. It's a little more vulnerable in general to higher numbers. So in some ways, I would think they're a little more used to that down there, but we've just had so many bad events that caused the damage there in the more populated areas there toward the first coast, and we're seeing it again. It's unbelievable, really. I mean, deja vu here, really, is what we're talking about. We also have the mouth of the St. Johns River to Georgetown there in Putnam County. That storm surge factor. We're already getting reports in Putnam of flooding here this morning. It's just going to keep being problematic. We had major flooding being reported. In fact, I can tell you where that is. Let's go ahead and go on over right now to our other source here. We're going to go ahead and check that, see if it's showing it up here on our system. I know it was. Yeah, there we go. Okay. I think this is where they're talking. So let me go ahead and switch on over to other source here. You kind of get an idea of what we're talking about here with this storm surge factor. This is major flooding here toward the Duns Creek area in Satsuma being reported there. So you have to look real close on this map. So let me zoom in. We have the tropical storm warning in play. But if you look really, really, really close here, it's right along. It's right along near US Highway 17. In here, you see that purple dot. In fact, let me take off the warning because it's pretty hard for me to see here on my map. So it's still going to be kind of hard for you guys to see as well. But this is just the easiest way to kind of depict it here on the screen. Again, major flooding in that area around Satsuma. Unfortunately, we have a pretty significant flooding, moderate flooding toward Buffalo Bluff there. You kind of just see what we're dealing with there. That potential anyway in play on this November 10th, 2022. So we just got a meteor report. This has got to be one of the strongest gusts we've had in St. Johns County now, if not the strongest here, folks. We just got a gust of 53 knots out of the east-northeast now in the nation's oldest city. So that's talking about 61-mile-an-hour wind, and that starts to escalate that power outage concern, especially getting that at an official site like that. Some of these other stations, we might not be seeing that wind necessarily translating everywhere, maybe not 100% calibrated, but this definitely looks like here a situation where we have the winds there really coming on through. Damaging wind is what we would call it in the severe thunderstorms. That means it's like a severe thunderstorm situation without the lightning here generally. You just got to really, really be cognizant of what we're dealing with here because it winds to about 61 miles an hour. I know it says 56, but this reading just came in there a few moments ago out of the east-northeast at 61 miles an hour. So again, that's damaging type of wind, knocking out power. So charge up your devices. That's very important. Where I'm at so far, the winds haven't been getting extreme. Again, on this anemometer, but our pressure now down to 1,002 millibars. Already getting lower and lower here for that worst pressure of the year here, that worst barometric pressure. That's the strongest type storm conditions per se that you would kind of track things on going back in weather history, and that's what we're seeing here today. Got to be getting into the 990s here for sure as we're looking ahead, which is something we haven't got into in a while here, not this year, but it's going to happen here at this point as the barometric pressure reading continues to fall. So again, the storm surge warning here in play. Again, it's the high tide cycles, folks. Let's see a couple of them. We have these to put them in perspective. The greatest concern here toward South Bank Riverwalk is late morning. When we're talking about 3 to 5 feet, we're talking about more like a Gene or an Irma here in terms of that storm surge versus Ian here in this area. And then same as we get toward Mayport. Now, even 2 to 4 feet, if we got that range, it would still be up there. But Mayport, 3 to 5 feet here, or 2 to 4 feet, you're still getting on this list. And we already saw, I mean, I just showed it to you a minute ago here. on our other source. Let's see if we had any new updates, because we're almost, if we're kind of looking at this the right way, and the storm surge can be confusing from time to time, but let me check the water level data, and that's for Nandina, so let me check. Let me get in here from Mayport. I know it might be freezing up on your end. I apologize if it is. It's just a matter of me getting the latest information in on our system, and it looks like it's not popping that up right now. So just bear with me here. Again, watching things with this. We're just going to keep on watching, keep on waiting for that latest information to come in with the storm surge threat, as that 67 mile an hour information is coming in actually from a little bit earlier around St. Augustine on a National Weather Service official observation. So, and I guess we just told you about wasn't quite the highest that we've seen here. That's from about 6:19 this morning. So looks like the coastal inundation dashboard's having issues, probably because everybody's on here right now trying to get the latest information. So that's what we're kind of down with. Let me step out here of the shot real quick so you guys get a good look at this, just in case we're kind of cutting out just a little bit here as we gather that new information on Nicole. Again, that's how it works sometimes when we're in live coverage, because we have to gather that new information. I know checking some more reports, even Augusta there around, looks like Lake Okeechobee there, getting up there a little bit down in that range, region in the 40s, not like what we're seeing in our covered area though, but that Mayport number now looks like keep on getting new updates in. We're now up to 2.44, folks. So if we're calibrating that right here, I know again it's a little bit tricky sometimes with some of the factors that get adjusted here, but we're right already close to Ian now, and the high tide mid-morning. So definitely going to be going up here a little bit further on this list here. The high tide is going to be at 9:36, so it's 2.44, and it looks like it's the height here. Then we're right on the cusp of getting on this top 5 all-time list, which, as I look back here on my system right now, look at that inundation history. Looking at that right now, Dora in 64 used to be on this list, but it got surpassed. And it's already past what Dora was in 64. That was at 2.3 feet, 2.33 feet. So again, I'm just going to continue to watch here this situation. I know the tornado safety tips here in store, something to keep in mind as well. I just have to be kind of watching for the tornadic potential here. We have a tornado watch in play till 1 o'clock. You want to charge those devices in case of power loss from a tornado, but also in case of power loss from the wind. So you get information about a tornado. Have multiple ways to receive alerts. Watch me here, but not just do that. You want to make sure you have maybe a weather radio on hand. You have other methods in case one of those methods fails. Okay, we're now getting our first tornado warning coming in right on cue, unfortunately. Gonna have a tornado warning first St. Augustine area now. So you want to seek shelter inside that sturdy building around St. Augustine. You want to get as many walls between you and the outside as possible and protect yourself from flying debris by putting on a bicycle helmet. And so this came in our first tornado warning of the morning now, folks. So this is where we could have winds not just in the 50 or 60 range, but we could have winds over 80 miles an hour, give or take. So it just popped up on our screen now. Our first tornado warning anywhere in the U.S. here in the state of Florida from Nicole. It's on the board. I know we're watching the system, watching this impact here. And now we have a tornado warning on the board until 9 a.m. Let's check some of our correlation coefficient products. We don't see anything there, but again, we have our first tornado warning. So the information we're getting now is a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado is located over St. Augustine at 8:23, moving west at 55 miles an hour. Now, when they say over St. Augustine, it's just east of St. Augustine is one to really watch. And so there's a little bit of an area here right in town. I know the statement kind of contradicts what they're saying, but it looks like they're watching more in this area versus the one here toward the west. What a storm system here to have a hurricane in the U.S. making landfall in November, and now we're starting to get some tornado warnings from it. It would make more sense as this one here. So we need to get folks in shelter. We could have a water spout. We could be having a water spout come ashore now in St. Johns County as a tornado. So a tornado warning now in play until 9 o'clock this morning. 4 parts of the area. So again, you want to get in the interior room. We have a potential tornado on our hands here. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to step out of the shot real quick. I want to gather some information behind the scenes here. I want to pull up one of our other systems as well as we're doing that, as we're kind of taking part in that information gathering process here. Again, we have a tornado warning now. A tornado warning being issued till 9 o'clock this morning. I want to pull up our analyst computer because we can try to do some different tracks on this. Maybe get a little bit better track because I know that track here on our system may be a little bit off. But we'll try to pull this up on analyst and I can try to do one manually here based upon what the Weather Service has there in Jacksonville. So again, our first tornado warning from Nicole, Tropical Storm Nicole, is in our covered area. So we got to stick with this. We need to protect you and your family. Again, you see that red box there, a tornado warning till 9 o'clock, part of St. John's. So if you know anybody in that area, you need to go ahead and call them right now and let them know a possible tornado is headed their way in that area there around St. Augustine. Yeah, you can see it quite a bit better on some of our other systems. That's why I wanted to pull up our other source here because the rotation now is just coming ashore. We just got a new scan in, so I'm going to step back in now and say this. We just got a new scan in. We may have a tornado on the ground, potentially at least, in St. Johns County here. So, again, we need to get folks in the shelter. Let me go ahead and manually track this. Again, you can see here we have greens and reds coming together here. And the scan beforehand was even a little more apparent as I look at some different things here. Again, we're applying our wind based on the tornado signature here. Can't tell if there's any debris in there. Doesn't really look like it, but you see the rotation right in there. You see our risk area as well. That severe weather risk is in play too. But you can see here the winds coming together here right around St. Augustine for a possible tornado. You see the greens and reds. Let's get back to other source now. Again, just gathering the latest details here, folks. Just gathering the latest information. I'm going to go ahead and get that latest scan in now and get street level. So let's go street level now with this possible tornado. It could be near Lou Boulevard. It could also be here near, it looks like, Carver Street West. We could have a tornado on our hands right now. State Highway 5 in the next few moments, possibly, depending on how this tracks. It's heading more more west here. So U.S. Highway 1 definitely going to be in the path of this, it looks like here. If we have a tornado on the ground, that path here is off toward the west here at about, it looks like 55 miles an hour. So mainly rural areas of the county, except maybe Anastasia here. But again, I wouldn't take any chances. We have a potential tornado that could be in progress here in St. Johns County. The time to take protective action is now. Again, you want to get in that interior room. You want to get pillows and blankets over your head here. Or maybe you put on a bicycle or football helmet to protect yourself from potentially flying debris. Now, albeit this isn't the strongest rotation in the world here on the latest scan, it still could be producing a tornado. We're seeing winds here gate to gate more like 50 or 60 miles an hour versus something like 80 miles an hour, which would be a little more concerning. But in a tropical environment, we could have a tornado sit down for just a moment and cause some damage here. So we need to get folks into shelter. Get a tornado warning for St. Johns County here until 9 o'clock. Checking some other sources, see if there's any questions maybe. I don't see anything right now, but again, we have a tornado warning here in play from Nicole. It's the very first one, and it's in our 62 county zone. Again, we cover our 62 counties here. We want to get you guys safe, keep you guys safe here. Make sure you stay safe is what I'm trying to allude to here this morning. So again, a tornado warning. Seek shelter now in that 30 building. Get as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Protect yourself from flying debris by putting on that bicycle helmet. The tornado has been detected on radar. We haven't had any visual let's try that again. We haven't had any visual confirmation here of the tornado yet, but definitely not out of the question here. Is again our first tornado one in the area is in St. Johns County. If you're wondering where that is, let's go ahead and try to pull up some cameras, see if we can get an eye maybe on a funnel, something like that. here in this area. It may be rain wrap, might not be able to get a good look. Honestly, it probably wouldn't be something we'd get a good look on because it would need to be near 95, and so we're gonna wait on the cameras. I don't think we have anything good enough yet. But the next scan, as this gets closer toward 95, we may try to pull up a camera to see if we can see something there. See if we get some type of lowering to reach the surface. But a possible tornado right now in St. Johns County here this morning. So on the first coast, we have a potential tornado from Nicole. So we're going to get back to this in just a second. I want to give an update on some other things here, since I know tornado coverage can kind of get repetitive here from time to time. So if you're just tuning in for the tornado warning, please take shelter here. St. Augustine area there under this threat. I know they're talking about rural areas, but really St. Augustine obviously is not a rural area, so I'm not sure exactly, I guess, besides St. Augustine is what they're saying. More rural areas besides St. Augustine, but you kind of get the idea here. We have to be watching this threat here in St. Johns County this morning. We need to be taking shelter. We're also getting some new reporting in now. New reporting in out of Flagler County. So let's get down here now. I know that worst of the bandings kind of moved north for now, but that surge threat here is coming on in, and the Marineland Acres area has experienced dune breaches and the roads are flooding now, according to, looks like social media and spotters. This is being relayed by Bob Pickering there. We're talking about South Meadow Avenue and Flagler Beach is now underwater there because of that surge coming on in. North Flagler Avenue also has rising water. Palm Coast water overtopping canal walls and rising. The Palm Coast homes are very elevated, so no risk to the buildings there. But in St. Johns County, we're watching the threat escalate too. But this is in Flagler, where I know we had some mandatory evacuations issued there in the that area because of concerns like this that are now coming to fruition here in northeastern Florida. So again, that surge coming in. We have a tornado warning here, St. Johns County. Let's look for the latest scan here. Get that latest radar scan for everybody. See what it looks like here on the Doppler. No, we're just trying to get you the very, very latest here. I'm gonna go to analyst because I think it's kind of broken up a little. I know sometimes our latest scans here take just a minute. It's having an issue on that computer. So let's go over to analyst then. We'll go ahead and see that. That's why I wanted to pop this one on. So we had this scan here just a moment ago, about 8:28. So this, and it looks like the latest scan now is showing even less organization, as this is right. Maybe they're 95, but it's hard to even tell because things have become so disorganized in here. So I don't even know if we won't even pop up a camera at this point because it's become so disorganized. The way this is moving, it probably would be right near 95 now. But this circulation, but it looks a little weaker in nature. Let's go ahead and see what we got here. See if we have some cameras there. This will be right there west of St. Augustine on the Florida 511 perspective. See how things look outside in this tornado warning right now. Again, checking some of our different viewpoints here. Trying to pull up, and there's some wind. Let's go this. I know they're moving it around, it looks like right now. So just bear with it. It looks like they just kind of moved it too far up. Okay, just bear with this if I pop it up and they kind of move stuff on us here. They're scanning around, so somebody's operating this right now. So it'll be kind of interesting to watch possibly. So let's go ahead and take traffic. We're going to go ahead and take the traffic system full now here in our source. So there it is. You can see right now they're looking at some different things, but they're just moving this around on us. But there's the view at the moment. You can see the trees kind of blowing around. Just a second ago, we were kind of getting a little bit broader perspective on things here. So now it looks like they've stopped moving it for a second, but you can see the rain coming on down here, the wind blowing around as well. So something to watch, of course. We'll continue to monitor that here, but let's go ahead and move that off because that's not showing us a whole bunch. Okay, let's go ahead and shift on over now. By the way, I know they're reporting even maybe a buoy being washed ashore there on Stewart Beach there, according to WPTV, but that's not in our area, obviously, way down to the south, but that's kind of interesting with the overall impact of the storm system. So Again, just checking some more different views here right now. We're looking here what we got. Let's check one to the south a little bit. Again, looking right now, I-95, their mile marker 312. You can kind of see here that it's just a rainy situation, a tropical type of situation that we're dealing with here this morning. Again, you see how things look kind of wet out there on the road, slick, so I got to take it easy, obviously, as you're trying to head out and about. But again, we still have a tornado warning in effect here for the next little bit for part of St. John. That's where we're focusing on St. Johns County right now. Again, the rotation doesn't look all that impressive, but we haven't had any new information here in just a moment. So, okay, they just gave us an update access. I looked over there. So let's go ahead. No beeping there, no confirmation of a tornado, anything like that, which is what we want to see, want to hear. But let me go ahead and see what else we have. So there's our latest scan. You don't see much there. It gets even weaker, and it looks like that rotation's moving out of the box now. Really, really weak. It looks like what I'm getting in here is that they're watching other cells moving in the box. They're keeping the warning for now, but the rotation has weakened. So let's check the other areas of rotation. There are some broad areas, but nothing really robust looking like what we kind of saw there for a minute in towards St. Johns County. Again, this is a fast-moving circulation here across this box. It's moving west of 55. So even though the storm system isn't moving near that fast, these cells can really pick up on us here and be problematic in nature. So just doing a quick track on this here. You can see if based on the movement, it's moving in this direction, but that's even misleading as well a little bit because, I mean, you can kind of see how we had it there. Let me move this back, zoom out a little. So you see how we had it kind of pop up on us and then kind of relax a little bit. So again, that's the good news, but there's still a tornado warning just in case we have some more stuff that comes on into the picture. Let's go ahead and show you our debris tracker. I don't think we've had any debris, no indications of that, but it's so up to 100 here on this, it's actually going to be a little bit easier to pick out, possibly. Now, some of the leaves are off the trees, so it may not necessarily kind of be as we normally see it as here. I mean, honestly, it could pick up some of the leaves, and we'd pick up some of that as maybe some debris, and I don't think we've even seen that here. I mean, you saw maybe a little right off the coast of something, but there's really not much here, so that's some good news on our tornado detection software, our tornado debris signature mode of the radar source. So again, we still have the tornado warning. They're technically going to 9, but they may go ahead and drop it here pretty soon. Again, for parts of St. Johns County here, potential tornado could be here within this red box. That's what we're dealing with right now. So let's go ahead and take the Doppler off. There's your red box. There's your tornado warning polygon here from Nicole. But right now, again, we're not seeing anything that's too impressive. So we're going to go ahead and keep on monitoring this potential here for sure. But let's go ahead and move up to some of our other sources right now, some of our other graphics. I know the storm surge threat's starting to get even worse now. As we talked about, we're getting closer to high tide. I know the wind picking up a little here toward the east of Stark as well. So that's something to keep in mind where I'm at. But let's go on over toward the camera then, since the wind's picking up a little bit. Next, let's kind of fluctuating on us here. It's just about time, and I mean, when we're just a one-man band, we can't pull up stuff right away, but it is showing it pretty good now, 13 miles an hour. So that's kind of telling us, or you saw a little bit of that wind blowing some of those downpours there a bit. See it again now on the visual as we're looking west there from the Stark area. So we're east of Stark, we're looking back towards Stark with this shot. So again, you can see here the rain coming on down, a little bit of those downpours blowing the wind, blowing in the wind there, 10 miles an hour out of the northeast. The reading we're getting on our anemometer, 6 miles an hour there from the east. You kind of get the idea as the barometric pressure keeps dropping, 1,002 millibars. I know, 13, 18 now, 18 miles an hour. A little different spotted in this camera, but not by much. 18 miles an hour again out of the northeast. And this shot here actually is not quite as necessarily maybe favorable for getting the wind here in some ways, but because our anemometer's in a spot here where it's really going, the wind's really coming across there, and it's probably been blooded a little on this job because of the way we're at, but not too much. I mean, it's not going to make too much of a difference here, obviously, but just these anemometer readings don't completely match up. But I know the temperature outside actually warmed up to 71. That's something that's kind of interesting. That's warmer than what we got there yesterday. We thought that would happen, though. It's kind of intriguing here to see. Got up to 68 yesterday for the high. We're already at 71. This is not like what we saw then. You'd think, if anything, in November we'd have the cool storm, but the storm, more that tropical type of air that's coming in play is what we're dealing with. So, again, that's what we're tracking right now. And we just got a gust there at St. Johns County. There, St. Johns County Fire Station is 67 miles an hour. And speaking of gusts here, I have our forecast. I made minor changes to this when I was in between the coverage and that break. We weren't doing this earlier on. I just wanted to evaluate some things here and see how things were going here overall with the setup. We were doing this on Tuesday or Monday. I did raise the numbers there to Ward Tallahassee by Dosta, but pretty much keeping everything else the same. Palm Coast just about 70. We've seen some just above that, but that seems to be about the extent of it there. So watching that in St. Johns County here, 67 miles an hour, pretty impressive there for sure. And then the rainfall forecast, you raised the numbers there just a little bit. Tallahassee by Dosta, but pretty much everybody else staying the same there, with the potential maybe 3 to 5 inches toward the first coast with some of the heavier rain bands coming on in. We'll see if we get there or not. I could have lowered those numbers, but decided not to. But then we're at here in Stark, 35 to 45 mile an hour winds here, with gusts to 60 possible. Now, anemometer is not going to read that high. I mean, the winds are happening there to some degree, but it's just the nature of things here with the anemometer. We're not going to quite get that high, but 2 to 4 inches on average, though, is what we're talking about there in terms of rainfall. And the tornado threat there definitely possible. We have a tornado warning right now that we're covering in St. Johns County, but scattered power outages are expected to charge up your devices here for sure. And then in terms of that basic disaster supplies kit, that includes water, non-perishable foods. If you have it around the house now, time to get it together. I mean, obviously you really can't go out in the storm and get it unless you're in some of our areas like Tallahassee still. You might have time to get this stuff. So that's something to keep in mind. Part of the area not seeing the conditions we're seeing, but hand crank radio, no weather radio, a flashlight, first aid kit, things like that, and that whole list there, ready.gov there /kit. So storm surge threat that needs to be taken seriously, both on the first coast, southeast toward the coast, and the Gulf Coast. And just got to be watching for that tornadic potential here, as we already have that warning in play until 9 a.m. And after the storm moves through, you want to stay away from those power lines. And generator safety, of course, is critical as well, because you can have issues there. That carbon monoxide, that poison, and it can happen. It happened during Ian. It could happen with Nicole, even if the outages aren't as widespread or long-lasting. You just got to be really careful. So let's go ahead and go back over to the tornado warning right now. I don't see a lot in the box. I do see something to the south, maybe. Let's see here. This is something that's actually could be. No, that's the false return. I mean, let's check the times on here. Now they're little. Let me check our other source again. That other radar, for whatever reason, in this tropical environment, is having an issue. So let me check our other mode. Yeah, it's showing it a little bit displaced as well, the rotation. So I feel like this tornado warning is probably not going to last too much longer here for areas of St. John. That's why we're not spending our entire time on it. But of course, you still gotta be cognizant of this potential here in St. Johns County. We gotta watch for other storms that could be rotating now. I just don't see a lot right now, so that's definitely some good news. But still, a potential tornado could be within this box here. Somewhere we could have rotation adding on up, according to the Weather Service at least. But don't see a lot there. Looking for debris, we're not seeing anything. But, I mean, these winds have been pretty strong there. Again, 67 miles an hour there at the St. Johns County Fire Station here at about 8:20 this morning. Power outage numbers, let's give you another update, see if we've seen an increase here, an escalation in these numbers. We'll go ahead and see what we had the last time we showed you, and then we'll show the update here as we're live on the air with you. So let's go ahead and take that source now. You can see we had 232,566 customers in the dark the last time we showed you this. But this number, I would think, will go up. It went down a little bit last time I showed you, but I would think St. John's and Flagler, we would start to see those colors changing there. Seeing a little increase in the state, but for whatever reason, St. John's and Flagler and Maidisby were not getting the data in, because I've actually seen some data come up in Bradford and Clay and Putnam counties now. So you see Bradford County, 780 customers in the dark. Clay County now over 6,000 customers in the dark. And Putnam County over 2,500. So you see Volusia there over 32,000, but Flagler and St. John's, I don't know if we're getting the right information. Duval over 6,000. We'll check something behind the scenes here real quick in Bradford. So just bear with me here as we're live on the air behind the camera. I can do this a little bit easier now. So I know there's a road obstruction there around Melrose now that we're getting in. So that possibly, I don't know for sure, but that possibly could have something to do with the storm here. Maybe a tree down, something like that, blocking the road. That's the Worth County Road 218 there. And it looks like 31st Street. So something's blocking the road here, whether it's storm related or not. That's what we're being told here right now. Again, that information from the Bradford Sheriff's Office. But just trying to see what else we have here. Okay, they just canceled a tornado warning for St. John's. You heard that beep here live, so that's the good news. A tornado warning now for St. John's County has been canceled out. As I know, we're getting gusts here, even toward Pinellas County now at 68 miles an hour. Let's see the outage numbers over there toward the coast, only about 1,000. So these numbers here, some of these winds maybe are elevated. It's a little surprising the numbers haven't gone up just a little bit more here. When you get to 60, you have issues. But keep in mind now, when you're at that 60 benchmark, if it's not as prolonged or widespread, maybe you don't have the issues too much here in a more widespread manner. So again, just checking our things here behind the scenes. So bear with me here, just checking some more different sources, because it's important to be able to pass this information along to you here this morning, as we're at 72 degrees right now, which is, again, warmer than what we saw yesterday, warmer than what we saw during Ian. So you would think, again, the November storm would be cooler than the September storm. We already had 30s. You would think this would be a winter storm in some ways, but instead, just a historic situation. As I go ahead and continue to watch the power outage numbers, but we're definitely going to be paying attention to these. But let me go ahead and come back on camera now. Again, this is our first hurricane to hit Florida in the month of November since Kate in '85. You see the tornado warning no longer on the board now. That's the great news. It's been canceled for St. John's. We just didn't see the rotation there. It wasn't really robust on us, so that's the good news. For a moment, it kind of was there. It came ashore, but now not seeing that. Let's look to Bradford County, see how things are going here where we're at in Bradford. You see the winds above the surface pretty strong, 40s and 50s. And let's go ahead and take a look at some of these METAR readings here. I'll put these on the screen. Gusts in the 20 range there in Clay County. Well, that's in Bradford, of course, at the Keystone Airport. But Gainesville Airport, about 35 mile an hour gusts. But you see the gusts higher and more significant there towards St. Johns County in that 58 mile an hour range. So again, 18 now here in Bradford County. I'm just checking the anemometer here. We'll see if it goes up or down on us. And it just went down a little. So we'll just keep on monitoring that. Let's take the shot outside anyway, though, because it may take a second to kind of move from one spot to the other out there. So let me go ahead and see what we're talking about. Yeah, you do see the wind picking up some on this shot. You see the downpours kind of blowing around here. I know, again, not saying this is exactly like Gene or Francis. No two storms are alike. But I know we had power outages here during those. The last time we had a prolonged power outage where we're at here in eastern Bradford County was during Irma, though, back in 2017. Of course, some of the other storms we've had the power flicker. But in Irma, without power here about a day or so. Pretty lucky overall, as we're now getting that storm surge threat here, even more and more so there in towards St. Johns County. So let's go to the broad view here real quick. Let's reset some things. You see it getting some of these different reports in. Let's zoom on in though. So that waters is coming on in. Updated a previous storm surge report. Business webcam now is showing 6 inches to a foot of water now flooding. And I'll try to pronounce this here. Avinda Menendez there. We're talking about State Road A1A now showing roughly 2.5 feet of flooding. So that's the update here, folks. It went from 6 inches to a foot to now 2.5 feet of water there. We're seeing that flooding there toward A1A in St. Johns County. I mean, that's some serious storm surge here, folks, that's coming in. And we're right near high tide right now. So some of the worst of this, probably based on what we're seeing, is coming in towards St. Augustine right now here, folks. The storm surge from Nicole, I mean, you don't think of tropical storms creating this much storm surge, but this is going to be damaging here, folks. This is going to be a situation I want to talk about for a while. This is going to be worse than Ian here in our area anyway. Nothing like what they saw down toward Fort Myers here now in comparison to then. I mean, that's just a whole different animal altogether. But for our area, we don't generally have these levels of storm surge, except for whatever reason, the last 6-7 years or so, going back to 2016. I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, when you think about it here, things are setting up the wrong way. And we've had Matthew, we've had Irma, well, we've had, of course, Ian, we've had Dorian to some degree. That wasn't as impactful, but the surge is coming in. I know we don't have cameras we can sell you. We're not authorized to sell you here on the air, but the surge numbers is coming on up here. And we got to be watching toward Duval County. That surge coming on up there. We talked about that. We had some graphics in the show for that. Gust to 60 there, St. Augustine, just a little while ago. Let me go ahead and show you some of the history here. I'll step out of the way to kind of see this graphic full for a second. So again, these are your high South Bank River walk water levels in Duval County. And we're talking about there with Irma. With Irma there back in 2017, almost 5 feet of storm surge there, over 3 feet with Jean. Again, this is a similar position to Jean, Roy, in some regard, and Francis here in 04. And those are on this list here. And the greatest concern is late morning here, there, mid-morning toward Mayport. And this is toward the St. Johns River, so it's going to take a little longer for that to come up, but we got to watch there as well. We really have to pay attention because 2 to 4 feet, 3 to 5 feet, all within this range, all historic. I know on our other mapping source here we were talking about it, but I'll go ahead and come back into the shot here in just a moment. Just a second here, we'll come back into our camera shot, and I'll go ahead and advance the show a little bit. So I hear the rain dropping off just a little, checking some different things here in the Weather Center. Let me go ahead and show you here. Highest Mayport water levels here. Doral used to be on this list, but 2016, 2017, 2021, 2022 changed all that, and it's not on this list as top 5 anymore. Now, another storm in 2022 might bump Ian off this list here with Nicole, even though it's just a crazy, crazy situation that we're dealing with. I know some issues on Palm Beach there, even though the worst of this has moved away from there. They're having, it looks like, according to a media member there, Brooke Silverrain there, I went to school with her. There, she works at the station WPVF there in West Palm Beach. She's saying high water from the intercoastal there is moving over to sea and onto the path there on Palm Beach, so it's flooding. And then got a gust there from earlier, delayed report back to our area now, 51 miles an hour, 6:57 a.m. in Glenn County. So again, the storm surge threat is escalating here as well, though. In addition to that wind threat, different areas when high tide comes into play, it is problematic. So again, just checking some of our different sources. Again, no tornado warning now. That's the good news. We still got to watch. We're going to have that threat here around, but the storm surge, honestly, is the biggest concern right now. So for 8:54, we're going to gather some more information here as we get around the high tide cycle. This is historic here for our local area, not from a national standpoint. I want to be careful because this is not like Ian in any regard here for what we saw in Southwest Florida, but for our area, it's something that is up there on those lists in history. I mean, just the higher water levels so many times, and we've had so many systems. I mean, been here over 20 years now, and you didn't see many. We had Dean Francis 04, and then we had some different systems like Faye. In 08, it was a tropical storm. It wasn't on this list with the storm surge there. We had Beryl and Debbie in 12. 2016, though, we started to see things escalate. Matthew, and then Irma in 17, and then we had Dorian there going back to 2019 and 2021. We had the nor'easter. 2022 we had Ian, and now we have Nicole. So crazy, but again, barometric pressure where we're at now closer to 1,001 millibars, and we just got our highest max wind. By the way, this just happened, and now 26 miles an hour here today at 8:51. So highest wind. I know that's gonna be a little underdoing things, maybe overall in the grand scheme, but that can start if you kind of extrapolate some things out. I mean, you start losing some power in these type of situations. So again, we're watching this threat here. Again, tropical storm warnings, the entire area, all 62 counties. Just got a gust report in Neptune Beach, 52 miles an hour here in this hour. So those winds definitely an issue. So 8:56 here right now. Let's check the camera outside again. I think it's been helpful here. It's easier to get to than our other sources. When it's in our system like this, we can just pop it right up here, and you can see the trees blowing around some. Definitely watching. You can kind of see the clouds move here on this shot. So it's helpful here as well. Trying just to give you guys an idea. It adjusts here from time to time because of the lighting outside. That actually adjusted a little bit in our favor there, but just keep our eyes on this situation. We used to use this a lot more, but using it just mainly for storms here at this point. As we're watching, you can see, if you look closely, you can just see those upper level winds. Things are really fast moving right now. So again, gusts now on our west coast. This is the first time I've seen one of these. Gust to 41 there, Horseshoe Beach there. In that area. There it is. You can see that report in toward the Mesonet site there. And let's get in there. So we're talking about, it looks like a part of Dixie County there. So again, those winds translating here across the region. And you see the heavier rain up here. I mean, that's the heaviest rain from this whole system is really in north central Florida and northeast Florida, even though the center of circulation is down there in central Florida. That's interesting to see. And we're getting reports out of Tarpon Springs now in Pinellas County that they're getting some heavier rain down there a little bit. Maybe not quite as heavy with the downpours as what we're seeing, but branch there 10 to 15 feet long and 3 to 5 inches in diameter down, according to the spidernetwork.org, along with several small 0.5 to 1 inch twigs with the estimated wind gust in that 50 to 60 range. So time to gather new information here. I know we want to find out what's happening with some of these storm surge values here, get some new details to pass along. So we'll do that here for you in just a moment. Continuing to watch a hurricane that was here earlier on, now a tropical storm Nicole. Wind 6, and we just got another gust, folks. We just hit 30 now. Let's go. So let's go back to the camera. You're gonna miss these from time to time, but we just hit 30 miles an hour there on the anemometer. So just now, pretty much. So you can see the trees blowing around some, but it's gonna be intermittent like that. So definitely could have some issues here. We'll be back here 9 minutes from now.
This is a clouds weather alert. Tracking Nicole.
Meteorologist Casey Cloud back with you here at 9:08 on this Thursday morning. Continue to watch Tropical Storm Nicole. It was a hurricane earlier, but just kind of tuning in, waking up here on this Thursday. It is the first hurricane to make landfall in the state of Florida in November since 1985, and the first to hit the east coast here of Florida with a direct landfall since 1935. So going back 87 years or so. But as a tropical storm now, there's still sustained winds at 60, and that pressure's so low, and really the nor'easter now, the actual situation here with the system itself really causing storm surge problems around St. Augustine. Again, we just saw this over a month ago, and now St. Augustine, right there, A1A is flooded again here. Worse storm surge conditions, it seems, than what we had during Ian now here as we get back, I mean, about 6 weeks later or so. I mean, just incredible to have that storyline come into play again here in the same calendar year after we've already seen it so much lately. See more of these storms kind of lined up here. And we have some rotation as I look at rotation tracker. A tornado watch does remain in effect here until 1 o'clock this afternoon for parts of the area. The first coast here in play. We're talking northeast Florida, southeast Georgia, a couple counties there at least, in Georgia, Glenn and Camden, and then in northeast Florida. We have Nassau, Duval, Clay, St. John's, Putnam, Flagler there under this, and I know with the flood watch, so a similar type of threat in area there we're talking as well. So again, we're continuing to watch Nicole. I know our gust highest was at 30, now 17 again. So let's take another look outside again. It's going to underdo it some because based on what the winds are here with the anemometer versus the actual forecast, because it's not at its height necessarily. I mean, it's at a good height for temperature and things like that, but it's not 50 feet like what some of the wind measurements are at here officially. You see the clouds moving there as I read 13 miles an hour now on the anemometer, but you see the winds aloft here. If you look real carefully here on this camera, you can see that movement here, and that's worth telling here. That storyline is definitely worth telling here as well. So let's go ahead and see what else we have for you here. Let's see our other sources. You see the wind picking up a little, by the way. See the wind picking up just a little bit there. It's on 12, but you see the trees kind of blowing the downpour there. This is, when we get these winds up a little higher than this, even you can start having this power outage concerns. That's on the power flicker just a little while ago here. But you can see them blowing around here. Gusts to 20 now. 27. Okay, there's some of the strongest ones we've had. Granted, it may be a little bit stronger than this actually, but at least closer to the ground level. 21 miles an hour now. 13 at that reading there, but pressure at 1,001 millibar now, so the lower pressure, the stronger the storm for the specific area in general here. That's the old saying really there as you're looking back again, continuing to watch things with the downpours. We'll go ahead and go back on over to, this is the view from earlier. Ignore that tornado warning. That was in play earlier on. Let's go to the other source though. We'll do that right now because this gives you the current view here. Looking for rotation. See some off the coast here. We got to watch these areas because we could have tornado warnings come in play. So far, the threat hadn't quite materialized as much as we thought it could. But there's still that tornado watch in play. You just never know what can happen. See these gusts in the 40 to 50 range here. Definitely interesting. Definitely can be hazardous here to some extent. Especially when you get closer to 60. Again, we keep emphasizing that, but that's for your severe thunderstorm warning criteria. So again, when you have these gusts closer to 60 and meeting that severe thunderstorm warning criteria, you can have more concerns here in terms of power being knocked out. And these gusts here, some of them right below that, but we've had some readings in that range, and we've had some power outages. As we look at Bradford County, seems like where we're at is a little bit of a low in the heaviest rainfall. But let me go ahead and check our power outage numbers. We're going to do a live refresh on this here right now for you guys at home as we continue to watch everything. I know looks like 840, they put it into LSR here to get to 71 at the St. Johns County Fire Station. That's what we call, at least in the older criteria, destructive wind there. So that's when you get there over 70 miles an hour. So definitely seeing some of that potential here Look at some more readings that we have here in the Weather Center. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this now. So you see 241,000 customers in the dark. Last update, look at that jump. That might be because we're getting better data in now, actually. Seems like we have a little bit of data coming out of St. Johns County now with some outages. We have almost 4,000 customers in the dark there in St. Johns County, according to this. Maybe a little higher, we'll see. But Duval County about 12,000, just under that. Clay County over 8,000. Putnam County almost 4,000. Bradford County about 780. Alachua County about 2,500. Marion County now about 6,000. You see toward Central Florida. Look at Orange County there, and some of this wind's headed up toward Alachua, Marion. Almost 60,000 customers in the dark there. Seminole County over 20,000. So chart up those devices here. Scattered power outages to, in some spots, a little more like numerous power outages are to store here as we're looking further on down toward the south. So checking some things behind the scenes again, getting the latest updates on in here. See what's happening in Bradford County. Look like another road obstruction now. So I would suspect again it's maybe a tree down or something because of the storm. This is according to the sheriff's office. Now we have 25th Avenue there, another road obstruction in Bradford County. So just take it easy out there, whatever that is, whether it's weather related or not. We just want to be careful here. We're going to have that across the area with trees falling. We can't give you all these reports, but we're trying to do the best we can with the road obstruction we were talking about earlier. Still on the board here, County Road 218 and 31st Street around Melrose, and then now on Stark 25th Avenue with that road obstruction in play. So take it easy out there for sure on the road. I'm hearing that wind kind of howl outside right now. So again, continuing to watch that. 21 miles an hour now, 17 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour, 24 now miles an hour. You kind of get the idea. Again, it could be a little bit stronger than that. It's just the nature of things. But let's go ahead and take another look outside. We'll go ahead and take another viewpoint here. You see that wind blowing things around here on the camera. You see these downpours blowing around right at this moment. So just be cognizant of that. You can see the trees blowing around here as well. Definitely, I mean, Francis and Gina at 04. I was looking out that window for sure. A lot younger back then, but I just remember that. And in some ways, there's some similarities between Francis and Gina, what we're seeing today. I know, just watching the cloud structure, you see that wind picking on up. Again, the highest we had here, there officially was 30, but again, 14 miles an hour here, 11. Again, the magnitude of these, a little bit underdone, but still, you kind of get the general idea here. The highest one we had today was around 9 o'clock or so this morning so far. So let's go ahead and pop up some other modes. I'll go to the Geo Earth computer now. You can see what's happening with this. Ooh, I see something I don't like. Actually, let's go to Analyst. So yeah, we need it. This is really lining up now. This tornado thread, it looks like. This tornado thread really looks like it's starting to line up. So let me start getting tornado warning after tornado warning here. We'll see. Some of these rotational areas aren't as tight. It's more broad here east of South Ponte Vedra Beach. This one here, though, is very tight. And it could, and they just got a marine warning. They're seeing the same thing I'm seeing. And you can see how it's headed. It could head towards Sawgrass here over the next 15 or 30 minutes. They got a marine warning, so I can give you a better track on this here in just a second. I know some of these we've been tracking don't hold together, so it's not 100% type of thing. But there it is. You see. And it actually might track a little more north based on this. Let's do that. Yeah, there we go. So they're tracking this more up toward the north and west here. So that's helpful to get a better track on that then. So maybe instead of Sawgrass, and these tropical systems are so tough to track. So that's why things shift so much. It's not like we're doing with any other thing really. So we have 15 minutes here on the benchmark. We have 30 minutes here. So that speed, maybe 45 minutes toward the coast here, the waterspout potential, maybe becoming a tornado potential on Mayport there at about 10 o'clock. We'll see if that becomes the case or not, but the parameters are there for this potential to maybe become a problem as we continue here. Let's go ahead and look at our tornado parameters here. Go ahead, go ahead and switch on over. You see our supercell composite. And what that is the rotational parameters overall, the potential for the storms to actually spin on up here. And the purples here are values that really high on the scale. I mean, we're talking about over 12. Energy values, some of these trying to creep on, that can be an issue. And then your significant tornado parameters, more indicative of maybe a stronger tornado or this more organized tornadic activity. You see some of these here, mainly Flagler, St. Johns County, a little into Putnam and Clay County here this morning. So that's where the biggest concern is, but that's going to be kind of working on in to some extent, trying to anyway. I mean, some of it's going to be limited because now I keep saying the track here of this is following here how the parameters are going to come on in, but it's also a matter here that the instability is going to kind of limit that to some extent potentially. It's done so far. Now that may not be an issue in some spots later on. We'll see, but I know as we get over toward other areas in our viewing circle, I want to touch on some other areas because you have Tallahassee. Their conditions starting to deteriorate there toward Leon County in the next little bit. Not really yet. I mean, we'll look at some of these wind gusts here. Yeah, they're not too high. 19 knots, that's not tropical force. 22 miles an hour there. These METARs, the more lines on them and the brighter type of colors are indicative of stronger winds, if you're wondering what that means. But again, let's take a look at rainfall. We haven't done this in a little while. The rain threat isn't extreme here, but some of these areas here in the last 12 hours already picking up close to about 3.5 inches there as we get there northwest of Vermont Heights, west of St. Augustine. So 3 to 5 inches, 2 to 4 inches definitely seems pretty accurate here as we're watching, as we're looking at our pressure readings here. So just get an idea of that level there, about 1,001 millibars. Again, you see it down there toward Central Florida around Lakeland, give or take. Estimated in 990s now. We'll see our new update at 10, what type of pressure they go with officially. The National Hurricane Center there in Miami. But you see some of these rainfall totals around Orlando in the last 12 hours, about 3 inches. Now in Bradford County, let's kind of break this down. This isn't going to be perfect, but it looks like about 1.5 inches around Stark here so far, give or take. About 1.5 inches or so toward central Bradford County. Lodi, just maybe a little less, but you see around Stark, that purple, that's what that indicates if you're wondering here. Like Butler, close to about 3/4 of an inch. Gainesville, closer to about 1 inch. So just kind of seeing how that rain affects things here in terms of those total accumulation amounts. So again, just checking on some different things right now. You see lesser amounts obviously there, and not even really any toward Tallahassee, Albany yet. But it's a long day, and they're going to be getting some of those deteriorating conditions here later on. So check some rotational threats here right now. You see some of these areas of rotation. I know we're going to be watching those, but also that storm surge threat. Let's get back to that because it's easy to lose sight of here sometimes when we're just using radar, things like that. But high tide at 9:29 around St. Augustine. So some nasty water levels there in that area right now with that wind direction causing all the issues. I know storm surge warning remain in effect there from Jupiter Inlet to the Altamaha Sound, the mouth of the St. Johns River to Georgetown there, Putnam County. So that is just really not what we want to see. We've had the life-threatening flooding potential really come into play here, potentially devastating beach erosion. We've seen devastating beach erosion in some spots. I mean, some building collapses as we were looking, at least one that I noted there toward Volusia County there yesterday. Dangerous rip currents, if not deadly, if you're out in them. And then very high surf values here. So threat there right now with the wind direction as it kind of comes on in toward areas there between the Altamaha Sound and Jupiter Inlet. That's 3 to 5 feet. The mouth of the St. Johns River there, we're talking about 3 to 5 feet. And then the Ocklawackney River to the Ent-Cloud River, when the wind direction changes later on, we're going to talk about 3 to 5 feet. So when the winds, I mean, they're going to be coming in a different direction here. So when the winds are coming at them like this, when the center, I mean, you kind of think of the circulation here like this. So when the storm is already up here, like way later, we could be having those storm surge waves coming in. Even it can affect some different other water bodies around as well. So I just got to be mindful of that here as we're looking toward areas like Cedar Key there, Horseshoe Beach, places like that. So again, I just have to be kind of watching there around the Nature Coast there, the Gulf Coast, the Big Bend Coast here today, as we just watch here this storm system get closer with the lowest pressure point. So again, let's go back on over now. We continue to watch things on the Doppler. I know, honestly, the way this is set up here, some of our heaviest rain has already been kind of moving on through here. So that's something to kind of take into consideration as well. But you can see here rotational parameters and rotational shear tracks is what I'm trying to get there. Definitely seeing some of that, but no tornado warnings right now. We still have to remain alert for those rapidly changing weather conditions here as we're monitoring this scenario. So let's see where else we want to go with this. I know I hear the wind kind of picking on up again outside. We'll go back to our camera in a little bit. Let's check some other ones though. I know we don't have any right at the coast. I wish we did, but I want to see what we have. I know we are getting some information about a bunch of. Actually, let's go to this then because. Okay, so yeah, this is not what we want to hear. But I do have a map here we can pull up. So we did on our Florida 511 map here actually. I know getting that new information in. So bear with me if we kind of flicker this for a second there on our source. I apologize for that, but. Let's go ahead and see our other source here for a second. I've got a few different things pulled up here if you're wondering what we're doing here. I'm just pulling up a traffic system because we have a report now of flooding there. This is from earlier, coastal highway, both directions there, and then some more reporting in, flooding on Volcano Beach. You kind of get the idea. More flooding towards St. Augustine, major flooding there at Douglas Avenue, more flooding reports. So. And then the Bridge of Lines, there, all lanes closed. That was as of a couple hours ago. But we don't have any cameras that we can go to there. It doesn't look like, but on the Florida 511 perspective. But we are getting a report in now from the spotter network in this area. And let's go back to the radar. Let's go back to our level 3. I know right now the rain's actually shifted to the north, which, I mean, in some ways, it's good that it's not coinciding the active rainfall. But we just had quite a bit of rainfall there. But multiple streets reported underwater according to spotternetwork.org in the historic district of downtown St. Augustine. And we even have now reporting of some homes that are almost underwater here in St. Augustine, almost underwater according to the spotter network report. So that wind direction problematic here, the high tide problematic, everything coinciding, the full moon here. It's all coming together in St. Augustine right now with that storm surge threat of 3 to 5 feet above ground level there in St. Johns County. So let's go ahead and jump on over here. You can see the wind direction here, problematic here right now. We're up there on the list for storms like Matthew, Irma here with that water level, just problematic. I mean, these areas just cleaning up. I mean, people throwing out things, maybe in Davis Shores, that neighborhood there in St. Johns County. They're throwing out wet carpet and things like that, all the different things in their home that got wet again. And now they're having to go through this again. They went through it during Matthew, Irma, and Ian, and now they're going through it during Nicole, just a little over a month later. Really, really unfortunate. But that's what we're having to deal with, unfortunately, at high tide here. We have to watch for the St. Johns River, the high tide, how things and how the water levels can kind of adjust here, and maybe water getting trapped there. We'll just have to see how that kind of goes. But let's go ahead and check here, see if there's anything that I can show you here that helps us. Again, our cameras are on the interstate, so there's really not much I can say here, unfortunately, toward that area. But I mean, we're just continuing to watch here, though. As water levels, it's 9:27, high tide at 9:29. So the peak of this is now in St. Augustine. Remember, turn around, don't drown here. We don't have any flash flood warnings, but just keep in mind only 6 inches of flowing water here. It can really impact you. In fact, I'm going to pull up our flash flooding tips. I'm not going to pull it up on the screen because we don't have an official flash flood warning here, so I got to be kind of careful. We don't want to actually pull that up, confuse anybody, but it's important here. I mean, if you're in a situation like this, you want to try to be in higher ground. Just remember, turn around, don't drown, and then the 6 inches of flowing water could knock you down here at high tide right now. And this water's, I mean, with homes almost underwater, according to that report, and the images I was seeing here behind the scenes, I supported that. I mean, that kind of tells the weather story here, folks. I mean, the water levels are just coming on up there in St. Johns County and in St. Augustine. We have to watch for Jacksonville areas there up the coast. I mean, that high tide cycle is problematic here as that water comes in. We had a nor'easter setting things up, and we have Nicole, and it's high tide here in 1 minute, give or take, as we're looking there, based on the reporting here that we've been looking at here behind the scenes, some of our different NOAA images here. As they come on out, we can kind of get an idea there. I mean, not no images, but our NOAA water levels there, kind of get an idea here of when those times are for different areas. I don't want to go over all of them here, but you kind of get the idea. It's a situation that we're trying to kind of hone in on here the best we can for certain areas in time. I mean, obviously, certain areas, though, are more vulnerable than others here to this type of flooding. And St. Augustine may be the most vulnerable. You just hate to see it there. High tide, folks. It's 9:29 here, unfortunately, on the dot around St. Augustine and St. Johns County. We're at about high tide there in that area. So just kind of seeing what we're dealing with there right at this very moment. You see these storms to the north. We have to watch here for this really tight rotation. Could have a tornado warning pretty soon. So got to be prepared for that. Yeah, some tighter areas here. This is now tracking more maybe toward Jack's Beach, according to some of our sources. Again, it's variable here. It's going to shift around on us here because of the way things are. But could have some rotation here in toward these areas over the next little bit. Even some rotation over land, it looks like. Oh, yeah, I don't see that's actually we're not going to verify, but it's so tricky with these tropical setups, these tropical tornadoes. And then we got lucky and Ian, no tornado warnings locally, but already one so far today for St. Johns County. So that's what we've kind of been dealing with here as we're just now about passing that high tide cycle. But it's still nasty there in St. Augustine, obviously. Got to remember to turn around, don't drown there in that area and toward these regions that get inundated with these flood waters from the storm surge. I mean, A1A there being impacted, of course, right along the coast there. So, again, just trying to kind of get an understanding here of what we're talking about in this type of situation. Again, you got to know how high tide kind of impacts your local area here and how things are getting going. So, again, I was checking on some information here behind the scenes, still looking at some of our details that we're getting on in. Let me go ahead and go back on over toward the power outage numbers now and give you a new refresh on this as we're continuing to watch the scenario. So this is as of, looks like 9:03, 19,000 in the dark in the state of Florida. Now that number has gone up to about 328,000 here and 554 customers. You see Brevard County there, 77,000 in the dark. Volusia County over 34,000. Putnam County over 3,000. Clay County there over 10,000. Bradford 784. St. Johns County there over 3,500. Duval over 14,000. I suspect Flagler's underreported there, but just continuing to watch things here. Checking some new information behind the scenes right now. I know they're talking about here in the chat now that it's starting to see winds pick up across the eastern and southeastern Big Bend with a few gusts there near over 40 miles an hour starting to pop on in. So, gotta bear that in mind. I don't see any new road obstructions as of now in Bradford County, but that's something you gotta watch out for all over the area because of our storm system Nicole here, that tropical storm. And we should have that new advisory out here pretty soon from the National Hurricane Center. So, again, I'm just trying to give you guys an idea of exactly what we're talking about here and give you guys an understanding of how it's impacting your local community here to the best of our abilities. So, again, let me pop back on camera now. I'm probably about to take a break here, catch my breath for a few minutes because we have some tornado warnings to deal with in pretty short order. So, yeah, we're going to have some tornado warnings probably pretty soon here, at least one. Got to be prepared in Duval and maybe coastal Nassau, coastal St. John's to some extent, probably more Duval here in northeast Duval, maybe around Mayport. Be prepared for a tornado warning pretty soon. We'll catch you in about 5 minutes with more information as we gather the latest details here. Seeing that rotation ramp up, so be ready to take that tornado precaution, take those tornado safety tips into action here this morning, because put those into action is what I'm trying to say here. So let's go ahead and just gather the new details here. We'll be back pretty soon from the Weather Center.
This is a clouds weather alert. Tracking Nicole.
Meteorologist Casey Cloud back with you 9:38 here on this Thursday, getting reports of some storm surge around San Marco now. Looks like getting some issues there on the South Bank as well. So we're talking about that potential, and that storm surge values going on up in that vicinity now. We're talking about the issue on St. Augustine, and now seeing that issue here as well toward the South Bank. So let me go ahead and pull up some of our South Bank Riverwalk water levels kind of on that cue here. We'll kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about with those, just comparing them, and we're talking about understanding here what is happening in the grand scheme of things, and with that 3 to 5 foot threat or 2 to 4 foot threat, it'd be up there as one of the higher ones, and that high tide looks to be more like late morning here is what we have it as. I believe maybe toward the 11 a.m. hour here again. This is why I can't go over all the high tides because it's so tricky there, but NOAA has those numbers for us, of course. But we're talking about now the circulations again. We're talking about those over the water east of Duval and northern St. John. They got to watch. And then let me go back to the Delta. We just got a gust of 60 miles an hour at Jacksonville International Airport. So that's a damaging type of wind. And then also here, that may be right on that level here. I know we were talking about it way earlier this morning, way in our coverage. Maybe the highest or tied for about the highest gust we ever had in November now reported at the official site. I know back to the 1950s we had some of those higher numbers, I do believe there. Again, it's not something I can remember too easy off the top of my head the exact details on, but you get the idea. Been a long night, going to be a long day here ahead. As we probably have some tornado warnings here issued in this next little bit, so be ready to take those tornado precautions here. You see the greens and reds coming together. We have 3 different areas, so maybe 4, but at least 3 that are pretty distinctive. So let me go ahead and step into this. You might hear a beep as we're looking at these and examining these. It may be a tornado warning that gets issued, but we have one here right now. Greens and reds coming together just off of Jacksonville Beach. I mean, even more to the north and west of that. But in the second area here, a third area, they go back toward here. So we got to watch for those areas of rotation here. That actually translate down to the surface here in terms of potential tornadic activity. So that's the threat right now. As you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, different outlets here, different platforms. I want to say that as well. Cloudweather.com, the header there. Of course, you have where it says cloud weather, and then you have live, things like that. You can click on live and get to the links, but also just under that it says live severe tropical coverage, and we have 4 different links for you there for you guys to get an idea of what's going on and be able to watch coverage on a different source, whatever you prefer. So again, getting got to 56 miles an hour there, Fort Caroline at 9:05 a.m. now. So definitely intriguing to see there as we watch these storms. Let me pull up radar again because sometimes it tells you if the rotations are valid or invalid here in some ways. And let's see here. I don't like the way this radar is. Let me go back to analysts. This is, for whatever reason, the tropical environment is having a tough time. Our analyst computer's handling this better. So let me go ahead and go over here now. I think it's the way I have some stuff set in here, but let's go ahead and check on what we're doing with. Yeah, that area there really needs to be monitored right off the coast here. So put a storm track on that, and that gets us over there somewhere toward Atlantic Beach, and that's going to be, as you look at the track, that's within 15 minutes here, folks. So that means we could get a tornado warning, a trigger pulled by the office there in Jacksonville pretty soon for some type of polygon. We've got a gust of 56 miles an hour at 9:07 around Crescent City in Putnam County. So that's pretty impressive. I know I want to make sure we give you the best view on this. So that's what we're doing out. Looking at some different things. Keep checking my anemometer here. I know our readings are a little lower, but we've had a peak of 30 so far for east to start. But let me just step into this. This is a little bit better view in some ways. This is the 9:40 a.m. view here. And you can see that is definitely the way that's setting up. That one, even this one here. But this is the more leading one here that looks like the more predominant threat, though. Over land, we have some rotation here, too, now around Ponte Vedra Beach to the south. So I mean, literally, these can develop and fade in one radar scan. So that's why we have to have it on our analyst computer because it really analyze this thing's good. You see the winds aloft trying to translate in the velocity, but then when you have the greens and reds come together here, that's when we get more concerned. We have winds there of 53, 54 miles an hour, and in 20s. That could be a hurricane force type wind there, and would be maybe an EF0, EF1 type tornado that could evolve on us here. If this were to produce maybe a water spout that comes on towards a tornado, something in that regard. So again, I'm just trying to see what we're dealing with now with this, if we have any debris, which would be water being picked up in this case, but obviously you don't want to be out on the water here in this scenario on this Thursday. It's historic Thursday, our first hurricane hitting the state of Florida in November, going back here 37 years almost, but 52 knots now. Looks like 9:22 this morning. That's pretty high up there on the scale. It's 16 miles an hour, as we were just alluding to. I just came across in the METAR report. Some of that stuff you can get Cloud_X on Twitter, automated Twitter account. But again, there's your rotation. You see the brighter colors here. Again, we're watching the latest scans. I know radar does some different things. The other one is in tropical mode, and there's a new update. That's our 9:44 update. So right now, there's your new scan. So the track on this potential, this looks like something that would get a tornado warning. So it's just headed toward Neptune Beach maybe within 15 minutes. That's 15 minutes up here. You see my mouse? That's about 10 minutes away from Neptune Beach. So it's time to maybe have one foot in that tornado safe spot, one foot out, if you know what I mean. Be ready to take your tornado precautions. So let's go over them now in case we get a tornado warning. I know this stuff's been kind of hit or miss here, trying to give you the advance warnings on these because they seem to fall apart sometimes when they get closer to the coast, but the instability values may be kind of going up some. So that's something we have to kind of bear in mind here this morning for sure. Let me go ahead and go to the graphics now. Say your safety tips, of course, the tornado watch in Plato 1, and this is favorable for tornadic activity and close to the watch area. So you want to have multiple ways to receive alerts here. And then when a tornado warning this, that means the tornado has been detected by radar or actually visually spotted. So you want to seek shelter inside that sturdy building, get as many walls between you and the outside as possible, and protect yourself from flying debris by putting on a bicycle helmet. I know during Irma, we had these tornadoes that would come on shore. One in St. Johns County was an EF2, and that's where you have the enhanced damage here that can be deadly in nature here. So we really have to be really cautious. That's why we're treating these so seriously. And I mean, Gene and Francis, it wasn't as big of a threat in terms of the maybe damage that I recall. Granted, I was 10 back then. But in terms of the warning volume, I don't think we've had anything close to that here. And we've only had one tornado warning so far. So kind of doubt we'll get to that level. I know we had quite a few tornado warnings there in Bay. It came at us back from us out of the east. So that could be a little bit of an analog in some ways. Here as we start picking up here, maybe some momentum for these tornado producers. So right now the green is winds going toward the radar about 37. Red about 14, so a little lower, but that's still 50-mile-an-hour wind. That's enough in a tropical scenario for maybe a tornado warning. But we're about to get a new scan in. So let's see what we get on this. It should come in here very soon within our Doppler radar. Trying to download that latest data now so you guys kind of get an update. So you see the rotation here. I know getting that latest update on in here in just a moment. I know we're now being told there, though, in Camden County, Cumberland Island, significant beach erosion there up to the north, some flooding, some wave heights there, water entering the dune system. So you hate to see that there in that area. So all of our area getting that storm surge impact. And while our radar updates here, I'm going to go ahead and shift on over. I know radar's in a tropical mode, so that must be why we're not getting these scans quite as good on some of these aspects here. But let's go ahead and they're so quick moving, so it means so much each scan too. That's what's so tricky. But your Nicole storm surge forecast here. Again, 3 to 5 foot of storm surge. You have Cumberland Island there in that area in Camden County. That's there south of the Altamaha Sound. So Again, that surge coming on in toward that area. I know we keep talking about it, but it's worth repeating. Even some flooding reported around Tybee Island from higher astronomical tides. Just everything coming together here. That's why we're so concerned. I know we're continuing to watch things here, just continuing to monitor the situation, and we're getting new information in from various sources here this morning in the Weather Center. So, again, let me go ahead now and see what else we have on our hands here. Let me go ahead and kind of switch on over towards some of our other modes here, like our GR Earth computer. So, that can be really helpful to kind of get a gauge on what's going on here with the winds. Give me a second here. Let's go past this and go to the north. You can see some of these winds here pushing in toward Camden and Glen this morning as well. Higher wave heights, the significant beach erosion, the water entering the dune system on Cumberland Island. So you hate to hear that, as barometric pressure to 1,001 millibars here in Bradford County. So again, just trying to watch our pressure pattern here this morning. Let's see, our analyst is showing a weakening trend, but it's still strong enough that we could still get a tornado warning here off of Jack's Beach. So, and actually, though, that's a little bit, let's see there, that's a little bit disjointed. It's so tricky. These have been very, very odd here. I know that's how tropical systems are, and honestly, most of our tropical threats here that we deal with the tornadoes aren't quite like this, where they're just cyclical here, I guess you could call them, where we have one scan that looks like tornado for sure, that water spout for sure, and next scan this completely fades apart. It's unusual, but the instability is lacking there closer to the coast. That could be our limiting factor here, really. Could be our limiting factor, so got to keep that in mind. But it's good news. It's just surprising that they're changing, the environment changing so quick here, and the storm threat decays on us here just a little bit. The actual threat there, the actual threat for a tornado. So again, we still got to watch those. Still got a tornado watch and play. They're chasing though. Look at it. I mean, the scan before here, you can see the green and red pretty apparent on this. Pretty apparent here, but. Let's go ahead and continue to watch. I mean, going back quite a way, our system kind of freezing up. You see how things are together, and then all of a sudden things kind of just fade apart here, which is what we want to see, obviously. But let's go ahead and check some of our other areas here on the Doppler radar. Again, you can see maybe a little bit of something tighter than right off the coast now. Not in the right spot, though, I wouldn't think. We'll see what it says, but again, we just got to keep watching here. Just got to keep tracking. I don't see, I mean, there's a little bit more right there as you kind of talk about. But again, we're just going to keep watching the Doppler radar scans here. So the rotation wanes, comes back up as we just got a new advisory in now on Nicole here. We just got our new advisory in from the Hurricane Center there in Miami. So let's go ahead and see what our other sources showing us now. So we'll go ahead and show you that we have the icon there. The 985 pressure is actually kind of south of, they still keep finding the center south of what our system shows, so kind of interesting, but that's there. The center northwest of Lakeland, right around Shepherd Hills, 45 knots. That gets us there to about a 50-mile-an-hour tropical storm. If I'm doing the rounding right there, it's moving across west central Florida, and then they have it as, it looks like a 40-knot tropical storm later on. So that gets us to about 45 miles an hour. So as we get up toward areas off of Perry at 7 o'clock tonight. So that movement there right now, 14 knots. So again, that's about 16 miles an hour on that movement there as we try to convert things over. Just on the fly on this system, it has it in some of those metric values. But again, just watching the system, watching technically it's showing more down here with the lowest pressure, but kind of it's an unusual thing because of how things are displaced a little bit between what we see on radar and the actual official center, but and where dry spots kind of are. But again, that's just the nature. It's a tricky system, as you can tell here. It's isn't like Ian where everything's just all It's like a bowling ball headed, really headed toward different communities and causing this historic devastation. It's more broad in nature and very, very large wind field. So, I mean, it's definitely intriguing to see, but definitely can be impactful, can be very dangerous for folks here today on this Thursday. So, 10 miles an hour right now with the winds here east of Stark. Let's see what we have with some of our warnings and watches. Let me see what we have over here on our other modes. So, right now we're getting some new information in. The 50-mile-an-hour winds, of course, we talked about. Tropical storm warning discontinued along the Florida west coast south of Inglewood and along the Florida east coast south of Sebastian Inlet. It's also been discontinued for Lake Okeechobee. And then we also have storm surge warning being discontinued there for the Florida east coast south of Sebastian Inlet. So just got to keep on watching that. Keep on watching that involvement of things here today. We just have to watch every different scan because things can change on us here pretty rapidly, as we've talked about here in the Weather Center. So, I mean, go from one frame, it looks like we're going to get tornado warnings. Next frame, not so much, which is good news. But very, very rapid changes here with this environment. I mean, we have the wind shear out there. It's just about the energy, and for whatever reason, the modeling was showing more of that, and we're not necessarily getting everything to come into play. I'm talking about the parameters here to come into play, like what the modeling was saying. So that's some good news, obviously. So that's what we want to see here on this Thursday morning. But we just have to be prepared because things can take a little turn for the worst here. It seems like, though, some of these winds have still been pretty strong. Gust to 60, give or take, around Jacksonville. Gust in the 60-70 range in St. Johns County. Though the power outage numbers haven't all caught up to those type of gusts here yet. Still got a special marine warning in play. Could still have some water spouts there for sure as we're looking out there. So let's go ahead and go on over right now to our other source here to get the latest update. So again, things can be very deceiving here from what we're seeing on some of our different sources. I know starting to get gusts a little bit higher. Colquitt County, Georgia, 26 miles an hour. Seeing a slow increase in the sustained winds there. We gotta not forget about those folks up toward the north and west as we get that latest update now in on the power outage numbers. Again, I think Flagler could be a little bit off, but you see Putnam County almost 4,000, Clay County almost 10,000, Bradford almost 1,000, Duval 18,000 there. You see just kind of monitoring things. You see Volusia, Seminole, Orange, Brevard there, Indian River. Definitely, I mean, pretty high numbers, over 330,000 customers in the state in the dark. But it's a far cry from what we saw during Ian. We had about 2.5 million or so at the peak. So this will be in the hundreds of thousands, as we alluded to this morning, as points and staying there for a little bit, but maybe not getting in that million type of range. I don't think we're going to get there. That's some good news, but in the hundreds of thousands for sure. Like what we're seeing right now, we were in the 80,000 range maybe when I was talking about that earlier on. But again, watching this, it's been a long night. I've been on from 2 to 6 pretty much, and then we came back on before 8 o'clock again with some more live coverage. So sorry if everything I'm saying, 100% of the things I'm saying, not all of them make sense here perfectly, but you kind of get the idea where I'm going with things as we're continuing to watch things to protect you, your friends, and your family here on this Thursday morning. So it's very imperative that we do that. We're here to guide you through this tropical storm. Now it has 50-mile-an-hour winds sustained, but there's some different things with that pressure. I mean, down now to 1,007 millibars and still dropping here, folks. Winds 19 miles an hour out of the east. So definitely feeling that impact here. Definitely feeling that impact. We'll continue to watch it. We'll be starting to get this out of the picture here later on tonight and tomorrow, depending on where you're at. Some of our Georgia counties hanging on to this a little bit longer into toward that Friday. But, I mean, high school football looking pretty good here overall versus those morning type of activities that were planned for Veterans Day. I mean, still some of those maybe would have been okay or would be okay, but it's about to clean up the aftermath. You don't know what you're going to see after people get out tomorrow morning. There could still be debris on the road and still some lingering gusty wind potential, or even some of our models showed the bats coming back in there when I was looking earlier on toward north central Florida. So we'll have to wait and see, but getting reporting out of St. Johns County, now the St. Johns County Emergency Management reports. Now, this is not what we want to hear, folks. An ongoing water rescue along State Road A1A in South Ponte Vedra Beach as an evacuating resident. They became stranded in the storm surge. So I know you hate having that situation coincide there. Talking about all these different threats here a few days in advance. It's just a matter of Roy unfortunately seeing them coming to fruition here. These parameters and these overall threats here with that storm surge. Roy having an impact. So again, let's go ahead and check some of our velocity modes. You can see here, seeing some wind velocities trying to pick back up. Nothing as impressive as earlier, but that could change. Still some bright areas of rotation, but until we get more of these to hold together, I kind of hate to keep focusing on them until we get maybe tornado warnings, because I already had some false alarms here, to be quite honest, this morning with some of these different areas of rotation. So we'll just continue to monitor things here in the Weather Center. We've had some festival rain warnings that look like maybe about to turn to something. I mean, Weather Service sees them as well, but then they kind of just completely fizzle out before they really get into the land areas because of slack and instability. Part of that maybe because it is November, and this environment is something that's definitely a unique one, though, but it's not something that maybe is quite as unstable as maybe if we were in July, like what we saw with Elsa. But that could change here later today if we get some destabilization maybe in there trying to mix in. But so far the models were overdoing that tornado threat. Hopefully it stays like that. You never know. You never know. But some of our models have been overdoing that so far. But the day's not over. Trust me. One tornado. I mean, we get one on the ground that goes to a neighborhood. That's all it takes to be problematic, and that definitely could be an issue here later on. So you see 70s on the board here, 60s off toward the north and west here, toward Tallahassee, toward Moultrie, toward Valdosta. I mean, mid-70s, that's impressive for this time of year. So again, the rain warning just went away, so that's good. I think it's time to take another break here, and they covered another 9-minute break for me to gather my thoughts here, gather some more information. As I've been with you for a while here, keeping you, your friends, and your family safe from this tropical system here on this Thursday, this historic day where we had a hurricane hit about 7 hours ago now, making that official landfall around Vero Beach about 3 a.m. if you weren't up. It went down officially to tropical storm at 4 a.m., but I know this tropical storm warning is continuing for our different counties across the region. The storm surge threat still along the coast, as we still have to wait for that threat to go up toward the nature coast here, the west coast. Could be an issue later on. So we're watching all that for you. The tornado threat, the wind threat, the flooding threat, which is more because of the storm surge. We're here for you. We're watching everything. Just stick with me here. We're getting through it together on this Thursday, day before Veterans Day 2022. So checking some of our different modes here again. Still got to make sure we don't get a tornado warning on our hands, because some of these velocities seem to be running up just a little bit here, but still kind of disorganized. So we'll watch everything. Duval kind of getting some of the heavier downpours right now, so that could lead in those urban areas to some of the pond in the water on the roadway here, where you have some more issues. And now seems like a more drier slide in here. Now that could be deceiving. I don't know if it is. Excuse me here as I kind of lose my voice, but I'm going to take the radar off real quick because I see something here. So, yeah, that's a dry slide, all right. I mean, hear the rain pick up outside, but let me just put on our infrared here. Yeah, definitely is dry slide. So that acts as some of this stuff here. I know we were talking about just how things are tracking. If it kind of develops like this, some of this may go a little bit more off toward the north, even toward maybe Savannah or the Carolina coast. If it tracks in the direction, it kind of looks like here. Some of the models here, I haven't looked at the most recent moment, but that just makes me kind of wonder, because we had all this in here earlier, and now some of that's going off to the north. So that could be more of an issue up toward the Carolina coast. We'll see. We'll see. Just kind of something to watch. But I mean, a tornado threat does go up there, obviously, in the word Wilmington. So that could be something to monitor here for sure. You sometimes get this with severe weather systems. The threat is far displaced from the low pressure area. So that's something to kind of watch here. Temperatures up in that area as I see the winds first, but then when they're in the 60s, and then the instability values here, let me pull those up. Not really seeing too much there yet, but our value, they might head more up to the north. We'll see. We'll see. That'd be some good news for our local area, but still got to get through this. We got a mesoscale discussing, so let's see what this is all about. This is from the Storm Prediction Center. Just a few minutes ago, sent this out. They're saying the threat continues here. Best chance for tornadoes to be across Duval, Nassau, and Camden over the next couple of hours as the tropical storm continues to drift west-northwest across the Florida Peninsula here with a warm, moist, and marginally unstable air mass slowly advancing westward. So that's still why we got to be paying attention. It looks like a band of low-top supercells is moving ashore. Point forecast sounding suggests the surface temperature need to rise into the 74 to 76 range for the surface-based partials as we get really technical with the mesoscale discussion, but what they're saying is the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma. This is to fully ingest the abundant there storm relative velocity available as diurnal heating on shore there. That's something we gotta watch, and it's really small ratings, so bear with me. But the primary tornado threat will be across the onshore moving storms there with those. It looks like the tornado threat is expected to continue drifting northward toward Camden County over the next few hours as the low-level flow continues slowly to veer more southeastward there, affecting a more buoyant air mass inland. So good start to get this to push more in. You see some of these temperatures closer to 74, but others below that threshold really. So that's something to kind of bear in mind here too for that threat to try to increase. The lack of that instability causing issues in a good way here for sure in terms of limiting that tornado threat. So that's the latest right now. We'll gather new information. I'll be back here in about 8-9 minutes here with more. So keep it tuned here to Cloud Weather. We'll keep you up to date on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Twitch here on this Thursday in November, tracking a tropical storm impacting Florida.
This is a clouds weather alert. Tracking Nicole.
Meteorologist Casey Cloud back with you 10:14 on this Thursday. Been here in the Weather Center watching things all morning long under the rain in Bradford County, and the storm here are not quite as heavy right now, but we'll go ahead and zoom in here toward Alachua County. You do see here some of the accent. It's going more westerly though, so a little bit of drying at the moment around Stark. Still some more moisture coming in, but it's an odd system, and that means the impact's going to be very odd here on that local level. So I mean, it was subtropical in nature at first, then became tropical storm, then a hurricane there for a bit. Back to a tropical storm, down to 50 on the winds, which is a little bit lower than, maybe it could have been here at this point at least. I mean, could have held us on a little bit better, and that obviously is a little bit of good news here. But it's far from over. You can't let your guard down. We said this during, also, I remember saying like the same words, that tornado threat. It seemed like it was a little more discernible though, because there's more instability of that type of threat here than what we have here at this moment based on how everything's setting up. I feel like I might end up getting a tornado threat setting up more to the north, southeast Georgia there, maybe in toward areas even in the Carolinas. We'll see, but again, we'll just keep watching things. We just got some gusts 53 knots there. Mayport at 61 miles an hour, and then Craigfield 50 knots. So that's about 57, 58 miles an hour there. So got to take those into consideration. We still got to watch the storm surge here. I know it's tricky. It's hard to try to break down on air. I need to go to that gauge there on Mayport, because we do have that. We don't have gauges like in St. Augustine, unfortunately, for us to sow here. We do have the one in Mayport. I know we're also watching the threat around Fernandina Beach here as well. That water coming on in based on some of our indications here, some of those different gauges. And then also here, watching that potential there in downtown Jacksonville, Dr. Inlet. We have some type of flooding in that vicinity there. Not extreme. I'm not seeing like the flooding we saw toward Black Creek there during Irma. We don't have that type of rain to cause that. And then also I know the piers. I wanted to make a point about the piers here real quick as well. I know you gotta just kind of hold on there, because I know like Jack's Beach Pier just reopened not too long ago. And hopefully it doesn't get damaged from this. Flagler Beach Pier already damaged during Ian though, and during this storm system, I mean, it's taking on more of those winds as well. So not what we want to see. Let's have a report in. I have the weather sim site up here, Bradford County. So I'm gonna go ahead and check on that right now. I know that a rainfall there, 2.67 inches in the last 24 hours. According to the Bradford County Sheriff's Office weather stem site. So just want to report that data here for you on that local level here, giving you an idea of the type of rain we've seen, 2 to 4 inches. And honestly, a lot of the rain, not all of it obviously, but a lot of the rain we had in that first burst, that seems like. Something else we're getting in now that we don't want to hear though is information out of the hammocks of Oak Landing there. Major flooding of yard and docks there until 2 hours until high tide. So that's something you don't want to hear, of course. Let's go ahead and see what else we have here for you. We want to go ahead and go on over, it looks like, as we're checking some different things, checking some different information here. And we have that new special marine warning on the screen. That's for some radar indicated rotation. It comes and goes here. We have to just pay attention to that. And then we're going to go ahead and see here what other sources I want to go to on the board. I know just checking quite a few different things here this morning in the Weather Center. Okay, the inundation maps where we're going to go here. So let's go ahead and jump on over to that. The inundation map, and then I can click on that from there and give you guys an update on what we're talking about toward Mayport. So let's see what the water level's gone up to now. Looks like some of these areas we've had the highest tide. It's really tricky. We need this is why we're trying to do the best we can with these, but we're trying not to get too specific in spots, because there's just so many different gauges that it really kind of impacts you. That's not what you want to see, obviously, here toward Mayport. So let me go ahead and pop this up. It just gave us an update here on our source. It's showing us major flooding there. Observed values there in that 3.57 range. So that's where we started to have some issues. 3.52 is what the present water level is showing. So the high tide was showing a little earlier, but still getting there, some of the highest water levels. So 3.52 is pretty high up here at the Mayport, Bar, Pilot Dock area. I know in Duval County as well, some issues with the major flooding of yards and docks. So some areas get it worse than others here with that water rising. You got to remember, just turn around, don't drown. You got to make sure you're at a higher level in your home in this type of situation. I know sometimes you talk about it in the storms like Ian, what they had towards Southwest Florida, where you don't want to maybe, in a situation, you don't want to be having to evacuate vertically unless it's your last resort. But here, if you're on a first floor, I mean, if you're able to, and the water starts coming in, you can try to go up if there's more than one floor there in your building. But hopefully we don't start seeing that too widespread of an extent here. But it just kind of depends on your type of situation, obviously, in that regard, and how the water's coming in, things like that. But again, 3.57 feet here, 3.52 feet, so enough. So let me go ahead and compare this now. This is always a little tricky here too with the way these are done and kind of analyzed. But so if that's accurate here in comparison with our numbers, again, it gets tricky, but 3.57 feet here, folks. So I'll go ahead and say you this and compare this here towards some of our other storms on the graphics computer. So if we have 3.57 feet in here, then that means this list now would take Matthew down to third. It would take Gene down to fourth here, and the Nor'easter down to number 5, and Ian would be bumped off the board. We're comparing these heights the same exact way based on the storm surge values here, the high tide, the overall water levels. It's tricky the way that's measured, but if we're extrapolating that out, then that puts that at number 2 on this list here, above everything in history except Irma. No, Dora used to be on this one here. It got bumped off because we had so many recent events. So if that's accurate, and that's up there with flooding worse than Matthew here, and this next to Irma here, with the type of flooding we're seeing. So not what you want to deal with, of course. Let's go back on over to the Doppler for a second. I want to see if we can get some Fernandina Beach numbers up here for you guys. Yeah, let's go ahead and pull these up again. We don't have these at a lot of spots. I wish we had this in St. Augustine. This is the Coastal Inundation Dashboard there from NOAA. We're just trying to give you guys an idea of what's going on there on this type of information that we're getting on in right now. So let me go ahead and show you these numbers there now. I'll go ahead and make this full here so you guys kind of get an idea of what's happening out there. So this is the Fernandina Beach area now that we're tracking. I know we'll go ahead and check some of these water levels, and you see here observed there at 3.64 feet. So that's up there, 3.65 feet, give or take. And earlier on we saw this. It didn't really add up when they were reporting some of it earlier on, but this would make it'd make more sense here in toward these higher levels now as you do the conversions. It can't be too far off. Same with Mayport there in terms of these actual water levels in comparison to the top water levels. So as we look there, the data, so again, the water levels there in toward that area, comparing things here. If you just bear with me just a second here, we're getting new information on in, but 3.66 on this one actually with that. So then you extrapolate that out. So if you look at Fernandina Beach, if this is accurate here, again, it all has to be kind of looked at here. And I mean, some of this stuff has to be verified after the fact, even with storm surge numbers. But I mean, that number there, that high number that we're talking about on the gauge, 3.66 feet. I don't have a graphic for this build, but I guess we can go and take this. This is from NOAA here. Might be a little bit hard to look at, but we're going to pull it up just for a second. I'll step out of the way so you can see this. This is from NOAA, folks. Their website here, the Coastal Inundation Dashboard, and you can kind of see what we're talking about. So that 3.66 feet there, that would put us there above Irma and close to the 1944 Cuba, Florida hurricane, but under Matthew there, at this point anyway, but in the 1898 Georgia hurricane there at the top of the list. So again, storm surge is tricky, so take this with a small chance that we're not quite on the numbers here in comparison, but the forecast would be for this, and this is what we've been talking about for the last couple of days here. So again, not great as we're looking there toward Fernandina Beach and toward Nassau County with those water levels. So let me go ahead and check, see what else we have for you here. And go away from that side. I'm going to check our, we're having the issues at the Dames Point as well now. So let's go ahead and go back to the dashboard here. And that water level there, getting up there pretty high. Let's take a look at the history here as well, so bear with me. In comparison to the Dames Point now, folks. Just trying to get our water levels in line before I report these. We're one-man band, so trying to do the best we can here, but 3.29 feet, it looks like what we have now. So the Dames Point, I'll go ahead and pull that up behind me. And you can see here that it's getting to that major flooding territory now toward the Dames Point Bridge, and 3.29 feet. We'll go to that history. I just pulled that up as well. So only Irma is higher than that. So that's not great, obviously, because Irma was so destructive towards some areas and so consequential towards some areas there and toward parts of downtown Jacksonville. So again, checking some different numbers here. I know we had that fear in Matthew of really high numbers that didn't verify, but in this here, I mean, the fear wasn't at those type of levels we could have had during Matthew, but still, I mean, it's still substantial here. As I'm looking at the Riverwalk, the one that we had a graphic built for, it's at 2.52 feet. Let's go to the graphic that I have built then. We'll go ahead and do this. The South Bank Riverwalk. I know we're really kind of diving into details, but with these high tides, we're trying to do the best we can. We're trying to go over too many of them, but at this point, I mean, some of these numbers getting near record levels. It's important to kind of dive into things. So this is toward the Riverwalk, 2.52, so not quite as high on here, but still just under what Ian is. But late mornings when we had the high tide is what we set aside here. So again, just trying to give you guys an idea of what we're talking about in that regard toward the Riverwalk there in Jacksonville. Again, doing this all on the fly here, so just bear with me. Again, trying to give you an idea of these, so we'll move away from that aspect for now. But I think that's important because something we need to make sure we focus on, because that water can really in the past storms here, you study those, that's really what's most consequential, that water, that storm surge, that higher water level. So we need to make sure we're focusing more on that here in this type of situation. So I'm going to check some of our areas of rotation again on the Doppler. Let's go back on over right now to that. You can see here we have a little bit of weak rotation here off of Nassau. At least some stronger winds could get down to the surface in this because they have the higher winds aloft. And we just have to watch all of that. I know toward Gainesville, gusting to 40 range there in Alachua County. So I haven't talked too much about the numbers down there, but we'll continue to watch them as the situation does transpire here. We just have to kind of monitor things. And still our peak today at 30 here is to start. Have some more rain in Bradford County right now. You see some of that. It might be slipping south of our spot, but the worst of it. But still maybe a little. I hear the wind picking up some. So let's go ahead and see what we have on our side anyway. Haven't checked it in a little bit. And you can see some of the trees blowing around some. So 12 miles an hour now. 14 miles an hour. Our pressure, by the way, just dipped into that 99 range, right at there under 1,000, 999.9 millibars. So first time this year we had that type of pressure here in Bradford County. The lower the pressure, the stronger the storm fed overall here. And that's what we're doing with 15 mile an hour gusts here in terms of the wind, at least. I mean, sometimes you don't get that to add up with the rain if there's dry slots, things like that. But you get the idea of what we're talking about. So let's go back. You see the tornado watch has actually been cleared now for St. Johns County. We just don't have the rain coming on into that area. So that's some good news there as we're watching some things in toward that area. So think I want to check the power outage numbers real quick because I want to see what's happening with those again then. Tornado watch still continuing till 1 o'clock at the last check toward the north, but I'm going to go ahead and check our power outage mapping now again. Let's go ahead and see this. This is what we had a little while ago. 330,000 customers in the dark. Now we're 345,000. You see St. John's going a little bit more now with outages. Stop on St. John's, I'm at 8,000. Duval over 23,000 now in the dark. Nassau County a couple thousand. Not sure about Flagler, but Volusia over 35, almost 36,000 there. Putnam over 4,000. We're right in Bradford about 848 customers. Now that does not include the city electric, so bear that in mind. But just continue to watch some different things here in the Weather Center. I'm going to check some things behind the scenes now. Again, it's a one-man band here, folks, so bear with me as we get the latest information on in. But we're at 10:30 now on this Thursday morning. Just trying to check on everything that we need to here to the best of our ability, at least. Again, making sure we give you all these latest updates here. Very, very important. So, gonna make sure we have our ability here in our chat session to get the latest information in. Some of the stuff going a little offline here at times, but just checking it here right now. So, again, you see these added numbers. You see Brevard County highlighted there. I'll move the map down there with our cursor. 84,000 customers in the dark there right now toward the Space Coast. So, definitely having to deal with that potential here this morning with those outages. Coming into play, Titusville, Cape Canaveral. You kind of get an understanding of what's going on in that vicinity. So that's what we're kind of having to check on here and figure on out as we're watching some of our hyper local conditions. So again, still watching things. Gust 18 now here east of Stark. So monitoring all that. Let me go ahead and come back on camera now. Again, you see some of these special marine warnings here in play. And we still have to watch these rotational areas, see if we get some type of tornado warning. So, we're back in 9 minutes unless we get a new warning here in play. I'm going to gather some new information here in the Weather Center. We're watching everything for you with our tropical storm Nicole. The wind's down to 50, but that doesn't change the impacts all that much. Those storm surge values are so impactful here on this Thursday. So stay tuned, stay safe out there. Try to be careful here to the best of your ability.